Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Big Brother 21 Roundtable podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything from the feeds. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Brent. How you doing, Brent?
Taran, I have a question for the chat. So this just happened to me at the supermarket yesterday. I was in the supermarket shopping, as you do, and all of a sudden that Every Morning song from like Sugar Ray came on, and instead of actually singing the Sugar Ray song, I started singing the lyrics as it is on the morning update show. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like every morning, Taran Armstrong, blah, 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 blah. Or maybe you don't. So you host the show. So you
I never listened to it.
It comes on every flipping time. Every time I listen to a podcast, that song comes on. But it's, you know, it's the Sugar Ray song, but it's like got different lyrics over it, and the lyrics are very fun. So like, I just wanted to know if anybody actually like is like me. And when you hear that song, I start singing the rap lyrics, not the actual lyrics, which I think is kind of hilarious. Anyways, how you doing?
Doing well.
Okay.
Enjoying you saying the rap lyrics as though it were a rap.
Yes.
Also with me tonight, Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing well. Another week, another failed twist flop.
I'll drink to that.
Which is actually a good thing, so I will take it. But very, very excited to talk about the week, especially considering, like, if you go back and listen to our podcast or our last roundtable, we absolutely thought Christy was going home, and now, well, anything can happen. So very exciting.
She's still there. And that's going to be a big factor, I imagine, in the stock watch. So let's talk about the week as a whole. The last time we spoke, as Melissa mentioned, we were under the assumption that it was really looking like Christy was going to go home. The odds were definitely stacked against her. It really didn't make sense for her to stay, and Jackson seemed very stubborn, very dead set on keeping her, on getting rid of her. But Taco Tuesday happened.
Taco Tuesday.
And the tacos changed everything.
Every time people talk about Taco Tuesday, it makes me want to eat tacos.
I've
I've had a lot of taco cravings this week, and I didn't know why, though. I didn't understand like why I kept thinking about tacos every time I was thinking about like, what do I want to eat? And there you go, Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday. I wonder how much the big taco lobby paid Christy to
it's
advertise
big
for them.
taco, Taran.
Mm.
Wake up.
Come
Wake
on,
up,
sheeple.
It's the Taco Tuesday.
Everyone's always throwing out conspiracy theories about Allison Grodner. They're not talking about Big Taco.
Yeah, they're not talking about the taco. We gotta talk about the taco.
All right, we've gone too far.
I'm
So,
losing it.
after Taco Tuesday, Christy sells her soul, so to speak, while Sis sells nothing. She's trying to, I don't know, buy something. I don't know what it is here. Jackson is worried. Also, Jackson's going to tell us this week, in regards to last week, that he was concerned that Holly would pick Sis over him. And that was why he decided he wanted to get rid of Sis instead of Christy. That leads back to the discussion that I had on one of the updates about how Holly had told Jackson that, oh yeah, we had an alliance, and he was like, oh yeah, I knew about it. And she was like, wait, really? Like, how did you know about it? And he was like, because he didn't. He was just like doing that thing where he's like, oh well, obviously I knew, even though now I'm feeling hurt inside. It seems like that moment did have a pretty big impact on the decision, and he's later going to confess to Holly that was at the very least, one of the primary reasons he ended up changing his decision. We know that Holly had always kind of wanted Christy to stay and for Nick to be the one to go, but Nick wasn't the one on the block, so it's going to be Sis that takes the fall here. The vote flips, and before it flips, Cliff is going to make sure to get Christy to agree to keep Nicole safe. Make sure you keep Nicole safe. I will not vote to keep you if you are going to put Nicole on the block. Christy says, oh, I didn't realize you were a package deal.
And And I was very psyched that they included that in the episode.
Yes.
I thought that was a very important point. I was glad
Yes.
they showed that. And also just to go over our previous roundtable where we totally discounted the chances of Christy staying and Sis leaving. I could not have counted on how bad of a player Sis was. As I said previously, if she absolutely did nothing, I think she would have stayed in the Big Brother house. I think she's here tonight. I think we're rating her. I really think so. The minute she decided to start campaigning and open her mouth is when everything really started to go really off the rails for her. And it's like putting like a loaded gun in the hands of somebody who doesn't know how to shoot. It just was a terrible idea. She, again, should have just kept her mouth shut. Everyone already told her that she was safe. I don't understand why she had to like go ahead and campaign for anything to begin with. But once she started opening her mouth, that's when everything went to hell because she couldn't even look Jackson straight in the face. And he's like, so you're not going to come after me, right? I mean, like, we're going to vote out Christy, but we just want to know you're not going to come after me and Holly, right? And she's like, well,
I mean, do I have to promise that?
Yeah, because I'm not really doing... Yeah, no, she was terrible. And then Mike Bloom interviewed her afterwards for Parade Magazine, and she's like, well, I didn't want to lie to Jackson because he would have been my primary target. Again! No idea how to play Big Brother. You can lie in the Big Brother house. It's just very, very frustrating. I heard you on the morning update, Taran, talking about how that everyone is really afraid of lying. I feel like that Sis was not only afraid of lying, she was afraid of playing the game, and she just didn't know what she was doing, and that's why she was evicted. I couldn't have counted on how bad of a player she was, even though I knew it.
All right, so that's Brent's excuse.
Well, what were the? We can get to it when we get to the stock watch. I forget who rated who what, but we'll talk about it.
Well, I remember Brent gave Christy a 1.
Did I really?
And he was the only one.
Really?
Yeah.
I did?
Yep.
Well, I gave Sis a 1 for the past like 4 weeks because I knew. And now look.
I apologize.
Melissa called it on Sis for sure.
I had no idea.
It only takes 4 weeks worth of giving her ones to finally get her out the door.
Oh.
Melissa's been manifesting it all season.
All season. Is it really a manifestation if you manifest it, like, or at least attempt to manifest it many times?
Apparently, the chat is saying that my mic is low.
It's better.
Oh, it's gotten better?
Yeah, it spikes sometimes, and it kind of got stuck in a low spot, but I feel like it's better now. So
okay. All right. Well,
they can let me know if it's not.
All right. So as long as everything sounds okay, then I just want to make sure that I sound okay. Yeah. I actually have been thinking about getting a new mic setup, so this might give me the impetus to do that.
Yes. There you go. All right. So I did point out the Cliff thing because I do feel like that will be important later on. It did sort of reveal his cards a little bit here with Christy, who did stay in the game and who looks like she might stay in the game this week as well. It's a piece of information out there that probably shouldn't be out there if you're Cliff. I don't love the move from him. It did seem to me a little bit like his emotions got in the way, his inner dad coming out, wanting to make sure that Nicole was safe. Granted, he does need to keep Nicole safe in order to have any chance at winning this game, but I feel like she would have been fine. I don't know if he needed to do this. Sis ends up evicted by a 5-1 vote. Then Holly is going to win the HOH, which is not about bird calls. Which is fine. She wants to put up Nick and Christy, the target being Nick, but if Nick wins the veto, put up Jess and evict Jess because they need to keep Christy in the game to continue to target Nick. However, there was a conversation prior to the HOH competition between Nick and Christy where they kind of were like, we're not really going to go after each other, right? And that's going to become slightly important later on. However, once Holly approaches Christy with the idea of being a pawn next to Nick, Christy's like, no, I don't want to do that. And Holly is sketched out by that. Well, what do you mean you don't want to do that? You promised you would do that. That was part of the whole reason we just kept you. And so that changes their plans. No more is it going to be Nick or Jess. Now it is Nick or Christy. One of them has to leave because they can't trust Christy anymore already. It's already turned back on that decision. They also decide that they want to backdoor Nick. They want to put up Jess and Christy with the idea to backdoor Nick. That's what they ultimately decide on before they learn about America's Prankster, which once again changes their plans to, okay, now I'm just going to put Nick straight up on the block with my one nomination. Nick is chosen as America's prankster, and he does not talk to Holly and Jackson about it before the nominations. There was a confrontation, though, between him and Christy in front of Jackson and Holly, where they argue about what was said before the HOH competition. Now, we didn't see that conversation, but we do know that Christy had talked to Tommy briefly about wanting to approach Nick with some kind of potential arrangement. So we have a good idea that it was fairly mutual and that Tommy was involved in some way, but it's definitely mostly falling here on Nick rather than Christy, because as Nick says himself, he can't win an argument against Christy. So ultimately, Nick and Christy end up on the block. Nick put up by Holly, Christy put up by Nick. And I've talked about this a lot, Melissa, but I haven't heard you guys' thoughts yet. That's Nick. No word to Holly or Jackson before nominations. No hint of like, maybe let's work something out. No deal. No attempt at all to keep himself off the block, really.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of hard because I absolutely think he should have said something. And I think that there were many ways to get himself out of this situation. However, it's kind of interesting to hear everybody be like, well, obviously he's supposed to tell them about his power beforehand. Duh. When we've had many seasons where it's like, why did you tell them about your power? Why didn't you keep it secret? I just feel like it's like when it's convenient for us to be like, oh, he should have done this. Now we're like, we have this, omniscient like sense that like, oh yeah, you absolutely should have done this, when in many other situations, we're telling people not to tell anyone about your power.
Yeah, but I feel like there is a real difference, though.
Yeah.
And I feel like it must be pointed out that this was a finite power. This was only good for 1 week. It was one time. It was, you're the prankster for this week, and then it's over. Like, he had a window in order to do something about it. I take your point, though, that we have often complained on this podcast, many other podcasts, about people telling people that they have powers. I'm sure earlier this season, I was complaining about Ovi telling people that he had the nightmare power, or Christy telling people that she had the panic power. All true, but those were powers that had, many weeks to use them, and there was reason not to tell people because they don't want you in the house if they know you can use it in subsequent weeks. However, this one was only for this week, and I do feel like he, in many ways, it really felt like that him going on the block to himself must have been like a fait accompli, where he's like, oh, well, I'm going up. How can I save myself with this power? When really he needed to use the chess, not checkers metaphor and think three-dimensionally and realize you can stop yourself from going up on the block in the first place. Just go to them and tell them, hey, look, like, and I heard you on the podcast, Taran, and that you were talking about how Nick maybe should have gone to Holly subtly. I feel like, and I'm not arguing with you, I'm just saying that I think another way to go would just be completely obvious about it and say, look, honey, I got the power. I'm like He-Man, I got the power. I just want you to know that I can put Jackson up on the block, but I'll make a deal with you here because I know you're going after me. I have a sense that you're going after me. If you don't put me up, I won't put Jackson up, and we're both happy. Can you agree to that? I'll make a deal with you. I feel like that would have been totally great. He could have done that, and he could have stopped himself. Now, having said that, the way the veto worked out, I still think there's a chance that he could have ended up going home. But I also think there is a much better chance that Christy would have ended up going home because he would have, Holly would have already pissed off Christy by nominating her and making her the target. She might have been able to, acquiesce or get Christy to acquiesce a little bit to her, and by telling her, look, he was, threatening me with this power, and then after the veto, maybe put him up. But I still think that she would probably go home in that scenario once she was pissed off and put on the block a second time. So there's really no excuse for Nick not to have used the power here. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. He really should have told Holly, I'm the prankster. What can we do to work this out so that we're both safe next week? And he can put on all the additions and, menu items a la carte, like, okay, I won't go after you. I'll use the veto in the future, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah. But he needed to threaten her.
The blunt approach I would be the backup plan. It's always better to start light and end with the backup plan if you need to. But yeah, there's zero value in anonymity with this power if you're Nick, because Nick knew for a fact that he was going on the block. He knew.
Right. That's I think the difference here is that he knew he was going up. I think that, I mean, if you're going up, then you got to do something about it. But I agree with Brent where it's like he thought that was like, oh, okay, I'm already going up. So now what do I do like after the fact? But it's like why not try and prevent yourself from going up in the first place? There were certain moves that could have been made, but I was just saying, I think it's kind of funny that like usually we're like, don't tell about the power, and right now we're like opposite.
That's a fair point.
You know, it makes sense though.
Yes. Yeah, because there's zero value in being anonymous with this power if you're Nick, and he ends up telling people afterward anyway. So it's not even, you know, it's pointless. So he ends up on the block, and I really do feel, to your point, Brent, that if he remains off the block by making a deal with Holly, it does also increase the chances that they won't backstab him at the end of the week, because he's building trust with them by offering a deal, following through on the deal. That's how you build trust in the house, and he didn't do that. He just, it's typical Nick, thinking that he can skip the steps, the relationship building steps, to just be somebody's number one, like he did with Nicole. And to be fair, it almost worked with Nicole, but it hasn't worked with anybody else. And it really, the only reason it worked with Nicole is because she has nowhere else to turn, and she would love to go anywhere else if she could. So ultimately, Nick and Christy end up on the block, and Christy might not even have been the best call to put on the block next to him, given that she was already going to be the pawn that Holly wanted to put up there. He didn't even ask Holly what she had been thinking, who she would have put up on the block, and so he ends up thinking that he's getting away with something, thinking that he's putting Christy up and that Holly wouldn't have, but it was Holly's plan all along, so it's no change whatsoever. And ultimately, it might have actually been a better call, if you're not going to say anything to Holly, to put up Jackson. He probably had a better shot at staying against Jackson. However, of course, Jackson ends up winning the veto, but still, it's you had the chance.
I will say that Linkwolf in the chat has an interesting thought. He or she, I can't tell, says that Nick should have pretended that he saw Christy celebrating about getting the power, tell Holly and Mickey that, then putting Mickey up on the block so that they wouldn't trust Christy anymore and send her out instead. So there were a couple different ways you could go with this power. Obviously, it's Jackson. Jackson winning the veto puts a fly in many of the plans, but I still think that his best option would have been to tell her that either he had the power or say, look, somebody else has the power. But again, that goes back to the whole, like, no one's really lying this season. I don't know if you listen to the morning update today, but Taran was talking about the fact that people they're not really lying this year. If they're telling, like, they're making a deal with somebody, they're sticking to the deal. There's no, like, obvious backstabbing. I think the closest thing that I've seen lately is Tommy pretending like he's good with Holly and Jackson, even though really he's looking for any chance to get them out that he can.
Which is funny, because Tommy, I think, is the one that started all of this.
Yes.
Tommy is the one that started telling everybody, oh, I can't make a deal that excludes other people, because if I do that, then I will lose all my jury votes. A lot of people say this is due to Cliff's decision way back during Cliff's HOH. I very much disagree with that, because that didn't change the game at all until Tommy's HOH, when Tommy started talking about losing jury votes. And he said that a lot to Nick. He said it a lot to Christy. He said it a lot even to Jackson and Holly. Nick started talking about it really, really openly, and Nick became an open book, which ultimately was to the detriment of his game. I talked about how Nick was playing almost like a June Song game. The difference being that June was never actually loyal to anybody. She was willing to bounce back and forth and continue being shady, whereas Nick wanted to prove that he wasn't shady. People kept calling him shady. If he had just accepted that, everything would have been fine. But no, he had to go and tell everybody that, no, these are my people and I am honest and I'm not shady. And he ruined his own strategy. And it's because he was worried about jury. I saw the moment it happened. He had a conversation with Tommy. Tommy said he couldn't accept the deal with Cliff and Nicole because it would ruin his chances in the jury. After that point, Nick started saying, oh, well, I can't lie about these things because it will ruin my chances in the jury. Almost word for word what Tommy had told him. And this has spread around the house. Now you have Jackson and Holly talking about how Tommy couldn't possibly move against them or he would ruin his chances in the jury. This, I fully believe, 100% stemmed from Tommy's input.
It's almost manifesting itself.
Exactly.
Melissa, because, like, I think we may get to the end and we may get a bitter jury, but I feel like that part of it's being caused by people like Tommy who say things like this, and then it becomes a reality. I
feel like this could really come back to bite Tommy in the end.
Yeah.
If he's been saying all this stuff about, oh, you gotta tell the truth and don't lie and to help your chances with the jury. And then he ends up he's going to have to cut people. If everyone thinks that Tommy's on their side or he's this honest guy, whatever, if he ends up having to cut people, he then can't. He then could turn around and say, oh, but this is all a game. Like this is Big Brother. This is what you have to do. I had to do what I had to do. And the people in the jury are going to be like, okay, well, practice what you preach, because you've been telling us this whole time that you have to, in order to not ruin your chances with the jury, you have to tell the truth and play an honest game. And now look, and that is how you create a bitter jury. So this could really come back to bite Tommy in the end.
Yeah, it's interesting because this has been a flaw in Tommy's game that has existed from the start. One of the reasons why, myself and many people were high on Tommy early in the game was because he seemed to have a lot of really great ideas in terms of how to play the game and how to maneuver around the game. But the thing that constantly made me a little bit sketched out was that he would always be telling people about it. He would tell Christy most of the time, but even some other people I'm not ready to win yet. I'm still throwing. He told Cliff that he was throwing competitions. He would tell Nick that he was, sending, back and forth kind of vibes to either side. He would tell he would tell Christy that he was intentionally getting into fights with people and so on and so forth. And I think that this is a similar situation where he was in a spot where he had a kind of interesting idea. I've never seen it. I talked about it. I've never seen anybody try this before, intentionally try to play the Casey game. But he told everyone about it. He told everyone about it. And so now he put that out into the universe. And now when he's like, oh, crap, I need to pivot for the first time in the game, he can't. He's already locked himself in. Or it very might be that he locked himself in. So it's not looking great for Tommy in that regard.
By the way, I just want to say really quickly that Kemi is joining us in the chat tonight. I actually saw someone who claimed to be Kemi a few minutes ago, and I was like, it's really unlikely that's Kemi because I went to the channel and it didn't really give me any proof that it's Kemi. But I asked the Kemi, or the person who was pretending to be Kemi, to DM me, and Kemi did just DM me, so it really is the real Kemi. I stand you, Mama. I love you, and I'm so bitter that I wasn't able to join you that Sunday night when you were on the show. But a girl's got to work sometimes, so there we are.
Yes. Well, I do think I have promised Kemi a segment on the podcast that is strictly for biased opinions about Kemi. Yes. So we're just going to talk about, I want everybody to express how much they love Kemi. And honestly, I personally feel like I love her the most. So I'm just going to throw that out there and see what you guys think.
Wow, starting off strong, Taran.
I think that's probably true, although I love her a ton. I love her because she's so honest. I get the honesty because I feel like that's me. I really don't suffer fools, Mama. I really don't. I just let people have it sometimes. And it's not my fault that I'm being honest with you. When she was on the podcast, I think she even said this in her pre-interviews. I'm sorry, I know we're going off the rails for a second, but whatever. Kemi's in the chat.
Sorry, Kemi.
For real. When she was on the podcast and she said, as a lover of money, and I'm like, yes, Mama, I love you. That's just I can't. I love the fact that she's so real about it. Be real.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Taran. We had to have our little. I wanted to fawn over her for a second.
Yes. All right. Thanks for joining us tonight, Kemi. So yes, so we get back to this point that people are worried about lying. It reminds me of Big Brother 3, where Roddy kind of was in a similar spot. And in thinking about it, Roddy is a little bit Tommy-esque in some ways. But Roddy kind of locked himself into a similar spot where Roddy was like, you can't lie in this game. At that point, the jury was unsequestered, so they could watch the tapes back, and you weren't allowed to lie in Big Brother 3. And Roddy ended up in a situation where he either had to lie to somebody or go home, and he basically went home because he wasn't able to lie. And that's kind of where Tommy's at right now. Tommy, I do think, is lying and will turn on Jackson and Holly, but what that does for his jury chances are definitely precarious.
I have to say, I know that there are probably not many people in the chat who would agree with me on this. Really, I'm excited about any HOH upcoming, but the person I'm most excited about winning would be Tommy. That's the one I want to see the most.
I'd like to see what he does.
Because Jackson and Holly really think, now there have been a few things said today. Nicole's let them know that Tommy's been saying some things earlier today. Nicole related to Holly that she said Tommy said that, quote, there are a few people who've been in power and a lot in this house and they need to go. So that has to be setting off alarm bells in Holly's head, and she told Jackson about it. So maybe they don't trust Tommy as much as they used to. But having said that, though, if Tommy wins HOH and he goes after Jackson and Holly, and I know he's going to nominate them, I really can't wait to see Jackson's reaction.
Yes. All right. So
really quickly, just like as a side note, I think that the key is that if you go in the house, you have to start off the season, not with saying, I'm not going to lie, but with saying, I'm not going to swear on my family. Like, no matter what happens, I'm not going to swear on my family. I'm just throwing that out there to begin the season, just so you all know, because they always get you when eventually you are telling the truth about something. You're like, I swear on my family. I swear on everything. And then the next time when you are actually lying or you've like twisted the truth a little, they say, okay, we'll swear on your family. And then you go, what? I can't really, I'm not going to swear on my family on this. And they're like, well, you did previously, so now you clearly are lying. So that's why you have to set the precedent at the get-go that you're not going to swear on your family, blah, 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 because they're going to try and use that to, get you to admit you're lying about something.
Well, how's this for a question? What if Christy's sister was made up? What if she didn't have a sister? Do you think that would play well?
I think that's such a smart thing to do, is to just be like, I swear on my sister.
Right.
That this is like, and then you could say it about anything. Like, literally, it's like, you could say it about anything. It's like, I swear on my sister. I swear on my sister. Yeah, maybe people won't like it, but, you could always say, look, I never lied. And I swore on a sister, but I don't have a sister, so.
Do you think people will be more pissed at that, though? Sometimes when you get them with clever things, it makes them even angrier.
Possibly, but I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't be mad about that, but who knows what everyone's mad about.
I also feel like this is one of those things where it's really easy to do on paper, and I'm sure that you could do it if you went in the house, Melissa, but there are a lot of people who are in really, tough shape when they first go in the house, and if to say something like, look, I'm not going to swear on my family, could set off alarm bells in other people's heads, like, oh, he's a real gamer, he doesn't want to swear on his family, when if there is anybody there who will swear on their family, because they're like, look, I'm not going to lie, so I can swear on my family, which, they're very sanctimonious at the beginning of the season. I feel like that may not be as easy to pull off as you might think.
I've seen people do it, but then I haven't seen it being done as like a strategy. I've seen people say like, look, I'm not going to swear on my family. Like, I just want to bring my family into this. I just feel like this is a game. I don't want to bring my family into this. And like, they don't do it as part of strategy, but I feel like I would absolutely use that as a strategy to say initially, like, I'm not going to swear on my family, because then they can't catch you in anything. Like, you can just say, look, like, I'm not going to swear on my family, but this is what's going on in the house, or this is what
I hear you.
And that's, I don't know. I just think that that's something that I would employ.
All right. Well, Nick and Christy on the block after being nominated and playing in the veto and losing the veto to Jackson. Nick then finally admits to the fact that he was the prankster. His pitch here is that showing loyalty when nobody's looking is the truest form of loyalty, which I guess is the best way to pitch this once you've already missed a lot of opportunities. But it's not going to work, and he's going to make a Christy pitch to them. I'll sell you my soul. I'll do whatever you want. But it's not going to work. It's not going to work. They don't want him to stay. And as of right now, they still want to vote him out. Over the course of the week, Jackson and Holly are also going to lock in their Final Four deal with Cliff and Nicole. Now, they do it separately. Cliff is very much on board with them, or at least appears to be, whereas Nicole not on board and actually tries to dodge it a bit with some, I think, genuine emotion, but also definitely here to try to avoid the question itself. They're not overly concerned about Nicole as of right now, but she is trying to avoid making any promises that she can't keep as it stands. Nick is pissed at Tommy and Cliff because they're not voting for him. And we could see him throw Tommy under the bus in the coming days. We already saw a tiny bit of that, not from Nick, but from Nicole, who very, very recently went to Jackson and Holly and pitched to keep Nick to them, saying to them that you should be concerned about Tommy, that Tommy has mentioned that there are people who have been in power for a while and need shots taken against them. Tommy has been a little loose-lipped about his targets being Jackson and Holly. He's done a great job of keeping them completely snowed, but most of the house has a decent idea that he might target them. At the very least, Nick knows all of the dirt there. And so this should be getting out more and more over the next few days. But Jackson and Holly have now caught on to it a little bit. They're like, oh, did Tommy say that? Nah, he probably just said that to say it to Nicole. We're not that, but should we be? No, we trust Tommy, but maybe we should talk to Christy about it. So they're currently in the process of having their eyes opened, essentially, about Tommy. We'll see where that goes. That could lead to some very interesting stuff in the coming days. Brent.
Well, I mean, I guess the thing that I really want to say is that there's been so much bad play over the past few days with Nicole and Nick both playing pretty bad. I'm sorry, but Nicole, I love you. She's a great gal, but her play is just so bad. And honestly, she should be punished for how bad she is playing right now, but she's not gonna be because other people are playing worse. She's trying to save Nick. She's trying to let Holly and Jackson know, like, look, I'm not really on board with your plan to get Nick out, and here's the reasons why. And she really doesn't have enough evidence, I feel like, to make them or to convince them that they are making the wrong decision here. But you know who does have the evidence is Nick.
Yeah,
Nick
and
himself.
She should be convincing Nick to do this for her.
Yes.
Not her.
That is the key.
Right.
And Nick needs to do it. Nick needs to let go of Tommy. That's the problem. And again, I'm so sick of somebody getting so many chances in this game. Nick was given the prankster power, completely screwed it up, had a chance to stay, and now is probably not going to stay, but he's been given another advantage. Tommy told him to his face, look, I'm not voting for you this week. Tommy could have held that information in. He could have told Nick, look, I got your back, don't worry, and pretended the whole week that he's going to keep Nick in this house when in reality he is not going
or at least
to
pretend to be undecided.
Exactly. Or because he promised him, he said, if you're on the block against Christy last week, I'll always vote for you, Nick. Don't worry about that. He told Nick that last week, but that was when Christy was going home. So now comes this week, Nick's really pissed about that, but he needs to let Tommy go. He needs to, like, he's been told that Tommy is not loyal to him by Tommy himself. He's like, look, I can't vote for you this week. I'm sorry, I made a deal, whatever.
I made
Nick
a promise.
Nick knows about it. He needs to use that information and try to turn the tide by letting Jackson and Holly know that Tommy and Christy are not loyal to them right now. And I feel like if Nick stayed, he would be, at least for one round.
Yeah, I could see a situation where it's like, okay, Tommy hasn't told him that he's going to vote to keep Christy. So Nick still thinks he's on his side. Tommy tells him, okay, my targets are people who have been in power, whatever. And so then Nick's like, well, okay, Tommy's voting to keep me, so I don't want to like throw him under the bus, or I don't want to like, out him to Jackson and Holly. But Tommy straight up said he wasn't going to vote to keep him. So like, if I'm Nick, I'm like, okay, well, Tommy's clearly not on my side, so I need to figure something out. And I don't care if Tommy's gonna, if I'm like being true to Tommy or whatever, because he's clearly not true to me. So he's got to find a way to get himself out of this, and he has the answers. He has the method. He just doesn't know how to use it. And, Nicole inserting herself and trying to convince Jackson and Holly, like, oh, I don't know if this is a good idea. Like, that's not a good move. Like, she needs to stay out of it and not bite the hand that feeds her, essentially. Like, she's been, like, handed this Final Four deal.
Handed.
Like, literally on a silver platter. That could have been anyone.
She's done nothing to work that.
Right. It's just because Cliff has been like, hey, I'm keeping Nicole. He could have said the same thing about Jess or whoever. Mm-hmm. And luckily for Nicole, it's her. And so she's been given this Final Four deal with people that are like clearly winning a lot of challenges. She barely has to do anything in order to make it to the Final Four at this point if those two keep winning. And instead she like balks at it and is like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't want Nick to go, whatever. Like, just accept the deal. Like, later on, if you decide like, okay, I want to stray from this deal, I want to go with Nick, I want to do whatever, like, then do that then. But if someone gives you a deal, you say yes. you say, sure, I'll work with you. No problem. Let's do this. Like, because this is Big Brother and that's the way you got to do it. I just don't understand it. And it's really weird because I really thought Nicole like had a really good head on her shoulders for the game. And now I'm kind of like,
yeah, I'm less convinced, Taran, that what happened during week 4, week 4, week 5, whenever she was on the block, I think it was week 4. I'm less convinced that is the impetus for everything. I feel like that what we're seeing right now that's Nicole. I mean, I know that we've talked about this before, that after she got torched by Nick, when she exposed to Nick that the 6 shooters were going to come after him, and then they all had that bullying session up in the HOH room, and then she was really burned by that and almost went home that week, that has caused her to play a lot more passively and more defensively. I actually don't think that's true anymore. I think that the Nicole that we're seeing is the real Nicole. The problem is that she's really not a good game player. She just has too much heart in the game right now, which I can identify with. But I really thought that when I saw her as a super fan going into the house, I thought we were going to get much more of a gamer. She does speak eloquently and articulately when she is like by herself and talking to the cameras about how she feels. And it's not, I just want to be clear, it's not that she distrusts Jackson and Holly, or that she doesn't want to work with them. I was going to correct myself.
Yeah.
She does distrust them. She wants to work with them if they are legit, but she is concerned that they are not legit, that they are basically playing the middle and trying to play them against Tommy and Christy, when in reality, it's actually Cliff and Nicole who are more in the middle, and she doesn't realize the great position that she's in. So I really wish that she would play a lot more assertively rather than defensively, or it just is, it's not my cup of tea, at least right now.
I will say, I definitely noticed a shift in how she operated in the house, pre-week, it was week 3, and post-week 3, at least in terms of the HOH winning. But so I do think that definitely changed the way that she approached the game. And I will also say that I think that I don't have a huge problem with how she is wanting to keep Nick. It's hugely beneficial for her game if she keeps Nick. I just think that she needs to go about it in a much better way. I also don't have too much of a problem with her skirting around making an actual deal with Holly and Jackson, as long as she gets away with it. Because if she ends up sitting in the final 2 with Cliff, and Cliff has betrayed Holly and Jackson after making a deal with them, whereas Nicole kind of never actually shook their hands, I do think that's going to matter a lot to Holly and Jackson. So as long as she gets away with it, I'm okay with it. But the second she gets caught, this is a mistake.
I feel like it's one of those things that's like, okay, you're like, well, I didn't actually shake your hand. I feel like that's not going to make them feel any better. They're going to be like, okay, so you just like wouldn't commit to us. Like,
but I disagree, because Holly said to Jackson, like, are you concerned that she never actually agreed to it? And like, Jackson is a big guy on like, all right, we shook hands. That's it. Like, we locked this in. And that's exactly what Holly and Jackson, they're trying to do the exact same thing that Nicole did to them to Tommy and Christy. And so I think that they will respect that, because their logic is, well, if we shake hands, then we will lose their jury vote. But because we're not, because we're just leading them on, they will get our jury vote.
I feel like
on the right round.
Right, I hear what you're saying. I do feel like, though, that she doesn't have anywhere else to go. Like, are Tommy and Christy offering them deals? Are they offering them Final Fours? Is that forthcoming that I don't see? She knows that Nick is going to go home this week, most likely, and that working with Holly and Jackson is a freaking dream. They're always going to go up on the block instead of you. You have to know that.
And what is the problem with saying yes to a Final Four and also still working with Nick? I mean, there's still more people that need to get out. Like, I don't see why it's like, oh, but I have to be Final 2 with Nick or else this isn't going to work out. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why it's like, well, I can't agree to this Final Four and still want to try and work with Nick. If he gets out, he gets out.
The problem is, I think from her perspective, if she shakes Jackson and Holly's hands, she will Final Four with them. Obviously, that means she's not putting them on the block or anything. And then Christy leaves and she keeps Nick. Then who does she have left to put up? Jess and Tommy. She doesn't want to put up Jess either. She wants Jess in her actual Final Four. So then it's only Tommy, and then who else? It's either she's putting up Nick or Jess or whatever. And if the veto is used,
she's gonna win HOH, which is like
well,
very small chance. Like, I
sure,
feel like,
but you can't play for this.
But if you have a deal with, if you're in a Final Four, you have Nick working on the side, you've got Jess that you have like a thing with, and Tommy she doesn't have anything with, but like, then throw HOH, and you've got all these people who aren't going to put you up.
But she needs to win HOHs to put some wins and win some respect to her game to get on her resume.
Play a Paris game, win the last two.
That's a lot to gamble on. If you're Nicole and you have the opportunity to win a competition, you should not throw that competition at this point in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but then you just have to pick someone and put them up. Like, I mean, Jess and her don't.
Right, and if she can get away with having Jackson and Holly assume that she's working with them without actually making a deal, then she will get away with being able to turn on them if she needs to at that point.
I just feel like it's too tepid. It makes me feel like if I was Jackson and Holly, I'd feel very uncomfortable. Like I would feel very uncomfortable.
But they don't.
I'm just saying, like
Holly does.
Maybe they do. Like, I just feel like they might. Like, eventually, like, if she still won't solidify something with them, like, maybe right now they're like, well, we were just talking, we figured it out, whatever. But, like, if it gets down to it and she's not, like, acting as if they have a Final Four, I feel like that's when you're kind of like, okay, this is weird. Like, I wouldn't, I mean, I just feel like it's a bad position to be in for Nicole. Like, to be in this weird, like, well, we're kind of in a Final Four, but I never said yes. I didn't actually say the word. It's like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, of course, like if a couple weeks down the line, Jackson has HOH and he's putting up Jess and Tommy or whatever it is, it's not even a couple weeks down the line at that point. If he's looking at like Nicole is on the block because she needs to be used as a pawn, and actually maybe we should keep Jess over Nicole. Nicole, have you really been with us? Like I don't know. I feel like I feel like if she can get away with it, then is there a problem? Like you're saying that you don't like it because you think she won't get away with it, but if she can get away with it, don't you think it's the right move?
Well, I think that's looking at like the end result to be like, oh, that was good. I don't know. I just feel like if you're not looking at the end result, like, okay, whether it works out for her or it doesn't work out for her, I feel like if you're thinking like, is this going to work out? I would say most likely no. So I would go with the method that is a stronger method, which is like just solidify a Final Four and just go for it. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's looking at the end result and being like, well, if it works out, that's great. And she made the right choice, which is true. But like, if I'm looking at it, I think the right choice, if I don't know the end result, I think the right choice is to solidify something and also work with Nick on the side and other people on the side and just like see where it goes.
I also feel like,
to be clear,
really
I completely agree with that. I was just trying to make the point that I do think that if she can get away with it, this will become a good move, and I wanted to cue that up so that we're not just completely bashing on this move and then it turns out it wins her the game and the jury at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do feel like though that affirmatively agreeing to something with Jackson Holly could be something that's good for her later on in the game. Like Nicole, final two question. What did you do in the game? Well, I made relationships with people and I wanted them to keep me here and I wasn't a threat. So, I mean, as opposed to saying something like, look, we got down to final 9, final 8, and Jackson Holly, Cliff and I made a deal, and this is the deal we made, and whether she backstabs them or not, one of the two ways, it doesn't matter what she does at that point, because she can just say, look, I agreed to a deal knowing that I was going to backstab, and that's the game I wanted to play, or I held strong to it because that's the kind of honorable person I am. Whichever way she wants to go is fine, but at least she has a map of, okay, this is what I did, this is what I agreed to, this is the path I'm going to take. I feel like I do probably side with Melissa. I understand what you're saying, Taran. I just prefer that Nicole's game look a little cleaner. On the other hand, I take your point, though, that she is giving herself options and leaving herself more wiggle room, but I feel like she's given herself more wiggle room all season long, and I guess I just want something a little bit more concrete from her.
No, and again, your side, I am with you. I agree. Okay. I don't like that Nicole is doing this. I think she should just agree to a deal. I was just trying to make the point that this could be something good, and I don't mean that to be results oriented either. I'm trying to point out that there is a benefit to this move. It's not just what is she doing? Why isn't she just shaking the hand dummy? There is an upside to this move that I wanted to point out.
There is like jury management kind of upside to this. Where it's like in the end, she can be like, look, like I didn't lie to anyone. I didn't go.
Let me ask this question. So once she realizes Nick is going home, once that door is closed, like let's say tomorrow or even Wednesday, once she knows he's going home, don't you feel like then she will agree to this? I feel like she is holding on to the fact that I don't want to betray Nick, and Nick might still be here. So once Nick, or maybe maybe it needs to be past tense. Once Nick goes, then won't she agree to something? I feel like at that point she must do it, and otherwise they're going to look at her. I mean, because they keep saying, "Oh, she's only doing that right now because Nick's here." And then once Nick goes, I feel like then she's going to need to.
I absolutely think she might. I honestly, though, think that she might also switch over a little bit. I think that that I wouldn't surprise me if her and Cliff have a conversation where, like, hey, I'm really threatened by those two. Maybe I should, kind of work with Tommy and Christy a little bit. And Cliff being like, that's great. We can separate a little bit. That's fine. Because she's already kind of talked about how she doesn't love the idea of a Jackson and Holly Final Four. And Cliff has been like, that's cool. That's fine with me, basically. While still being like, oh, no, Nicole is definitely with us. So it wouldn't surprise me if she ended up kind of switching teams, depending on how this week plays out. Because the way the week is playing out right now, it does seem like it's against Tommy and Christy, because they are the ones that are against Nick right now. So it probably will end up pushing her to Jackson and Holly, and we will probably see something lock in there. But I personally think the way Cliff is handling this is absolutely the correct way. It's been what he's been doing all season long, which is absolutely, I'll totally work with you, bigger target. I definitely don't expect this to go down to the end, but here we go. Like, that's the way to play it, I think.
Yeah, I really like what Cliff's been doing lately, but we can talk about it in State of the House, I guess.
All right. So as of right now, it does look like the vote count will be something along the lines of 4-1, sending Nick home. Nicole maybe giving Nick a sympathy vote, maybe it being unanimous, but I kind of expect her to give the sympathy vote personally. So let's talk about the State of the House here. It's kind of a fresh new board we're looking at a little bit here. It's starting to look like it's kind of two teams again, with some extra pieces floating around. We've got this Final Four. I couldn't really come up with a name for them. I went with Jolly Zing, because it's Jackson Holly with Cliff and Nicole. Fellowship of the Zing. You call Jackson Holly Jolly. I don't know. I'm going for it.
Fellowship of the Zing. Woohoo!
So I could call it Fellowship of the Jolly.
That sounds like a brothel. I won't go for that.
I actually like that better. It consists of Cliff, Nicole, Jackson, and Holly. Cliff and Nicole right now do seem to be targeting Tommy and Christy, as long as Nick is the one that leaves. Wouldn't surprise me too much if Cliff wasn't crazy about winning the HOH personally, but I think that he would be fine targeting either Tommy or Christy if he did win, in order to make sure that one of them went home. I think he'd still feel pretty comfortable with Jackson and Holly being big targets after that. Jackson, if he won the HOH, would target Christy or Jess, in my opinion. As of right now, this Tommy stuff might change that. He also, though, plans right now on throwing the HOH, which people talk about that all the time. Will they actually go through with it? He's talked about it a lot, though. He mentioned it yesterday. He brought it up again today. He said, I'm throwing the F out of that HOH. I don't think that's going to actually happen, especially once the campaigning starts and he realizes probably even more that Tommy might be against him. So that's something to watch out for. And really, he could, if he won, target any of Christy, Jess, or Tommy, in my opinion. Then we have team, they know each other, but different this time. It's a different they know each other. It's part two.
Too many know each other.
It's Tommy and Christy, the no longer team manifest. That's done with. Their team know each other. They currently are targeting Jackson and Holly. This could theoretically change. Jackson and Holly are definitely the biggest threats in the house, and I would probably see it as a mistake if they decided to target Cliff and Nicole over Jackson and Holly. But I do think it's possible that at some point during the week, Christy starts feeling scared and makes a deal with Jackson and Holly that maybe they don't go against. But I think most of this time, I'm looking at like a at least 90%, 95% chance. I think they're targeting Jackson and Holly next week. I feel like if you have the shot, you have to take it when these people have been winning the last 5 out of 6 competitions or something like that. Like it's atrocious.
Yeah, I really do too. And I don't think there's anything that I think like Christy can only make matters worse at this point by openly campaigning. I know Nick's going to make a strong push for a campaign here. Maybe she's going to have to try to say some stuff, but I really wish that she would word herself carefully and like be like, well, look what I agreed to last week. I agreed to all that. I'm sticking true to that, because they still think that they have her on the hook. Jackson Holly still think they have Christy on the hook to not target them, even though Christy privately to Tommy is saying, look, I'm done with this. After being a pawn this week, I'm done. So we'll see if she has to put in any more work as far as that invoice is concerned. But I do rather enjoy the setup right now. Actually, I think that Cliff and Nicole are in a really fan-freaking-tastic spot in that they can win HOH and go after Tommy, and they have the votes to get him out if they want to. On
and
the
they
other hand,
still probably wouldn't be the main targets the next week.
that's the thing. I was just going to say, like, even if they win HOH, like, they might be worried, oh, well, if I win HOH, then I'll be the target. No, you won't be the target. Even if you win HOH and take Tommy or Christy out of the game the following week, well, like, let's say Tommy wins the veto and they get Christy out instead. The following week, Tommy wins HOH. He's not putting up Cliff and Nicole. He's going after Jackson and Holly. So, like, they really have a free shot this week to do whatever they want. I hope they take the opportunity and win HOH if they can. Cliff and Nicole I'm talking about. But on the other hand, if they don't win, I still feel like things look good.
Yes. So then we have team Everyone Else Abandoned Me, a.k.a. team You're My Number One, a.k.a. team Why Don't You Trust Me? It's Nick and Nicole. He's only got Nicole left. Tommy has abandoned his boy, and they're basically just trying to keep Nick alive, but it is looking like Nick will leave and this team will dissipate. It's not really. It's not a real team. Then finally, team Why Am I Always Left Out? That's Jess. And she is just being Jess.
I keep forgetting she's in there, if I'm being honest. I'm always like, man, the house, like, who's the next target? What's going on? And then I never think of her.
Here's the thing, though. I think that because like she's just chilling right now, there's absolutely a chance that she wins the next HOH and then breaks up Jackson and Holly for like, and so like the second major like big move HOH, and it's just Jess randomly doing it and Christy being in her ear to make the move.
If she then gets the end, like, she has a good argument for a win. Like,
sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, who else got out Jack? Who else got out? If she gets out Jack and Jackson, that would be.
Can we talk about that really quickly? Like, would she put up Jackson and Holly? I know that Christy would be in her ear, but Jess is a strong-willed woman sometimes when she wants to be. Like, I know that Jackson and Holly were talking about her putting up like Cliff and Tommy, and I'm like, I don't see her putting up Cliff. She could put up Tommy, but I feel like Christy would put in a lot of work to make sure that doesn't happen. I actually don't know what Jess would do.
I honestly think she could do literally anything, including the least likely thing, but I still think it could happen, is she still could put up Christy for all I know. Like, she could literally do anything. I think, again, least likely chance that she'll put up Christy, but anybody else is complete fair game, including Cliff and Nicole. She could put up Tommy. She could put up Jackson. It could be Tommy and Jackson. It could be Jackson and Cliff. It really guys are most likely.
No way to know with Jess.
Yeah. Well, we'll never know because they never call her to the DR. She was complaining about that earlier today. Like, no one cares what Jess thinks. She's a snooze fest.
Yeah. I mean, look, I could absolutely see it be Jackson and Cliff if Christy is in her ear saying, no, don't put up Tommy. You got to take the shot at Jackson and Holly. But she's like, no, but Holly is a woman and I don't want to do that. So maybe it would be Jackson and Cliff at that point. And if you count the votes, then Jackson would go home unless he won the veto, in which case, who does she put up then? Maybe Holly goes. Who knows? But again, it's Jess, so we'll never know. So there you go. That's the current state of the house. Things have simplified a little bit, but there's still a lot of interesting dynamics at play. And whoever wins HOH, it's going to be very, very important. Once again, Jackson and Holly in basically a do or die situation. They can rely a little bit on Cliff and Nicole, but they're not exactly known for their competition prowess at the moment. And if any of Jess, Tommy, or Christy win, I do think that Jackson and Holly are in a lot of trouble. So, with that said, you guys ready for the stock watch?
Yeah.
I am.
All right.
What order are they in today?
Let's find out.
Don't know.
Oh, I wonder why Christy's at the end. Okay. Here we go.
All right. Let's start here with Holly. Holly, I gave her a 6 last week. So did Brent. The audience did as well. Melissa, you were the lowest on Holly last week. She manages to win this week's HOH and is now targeting Nick, looking like she will be able to take Nick out of the game. How do you feel about her this week?
I mean, I feel good about her this week. I feel like I don't know why I gave her a low score last. Well, I guess, yeah, I was kind of moving her around. But, I feel good about her this week. I feel like she's getting out a good target. However, I do think I feel like all of this has to be said with the idea that we don't know what's happening with this prank week, like whether or not this is a real eviction, whatever. But I'm going to go off of the assumption that this is a real eviction. Everything's going to play out as normal. Because, if it doesn't play out as normal and there is no eviction, I feel like this could be really bad for her.
I'll say, just really quickly, just to talk about that, because everyone was asking us in the chat about that. I do not think there is a reset this week. I think that the eviction is going to go through. Again, Julie doesn't lie to us. That's the thing I think a lot of people are forgetting. She said next Thursday is eviction night. Another house guest will be evicted, and they will join the jury. Someone will be sent to the jury, is what she said. So I really feel like that people are really wishing a reset into existence or a do-over into existence, when in reality, it's just a part of the twist, and it really is going to be an eviction. I am of the opinion that one of two things is going to happen. Either, and no matter what, this week is legit. There will be an eviction on Thursday. What I think a lot of people are saying that they want a reset, or they're thinking there's going to be a reset because they want to have a double eviction. I don't even think they need to have that to have the double eviction. They just have the week like normal. And instead of having the fast forward from final 5 to final 3 that they have done in past years, I really feel like they could grab an extra week there and do a double eviction, like from 7 to 5 or something, which ironically would be when we're in New York for the Big Brother event. So I'm hoping for that.
It's what we're hoping for, yeah.
I feel like a situation where it is a reset week and neither of her targets goes home. I just feel like that's really bad for her, because it kind of made her show her cards to everybody. I mean, she already had to tell Christy that she was considering putting her up on the block when she didn't have to do that, because the prankster person was going to put somebody on the block, and it ended up being Christy. And it just, it kind of soured her relationship with Christy a little bit, even though it shouldn't have, since that was the promise, but whatever. Go ahead.
Sorry, just before we get away from the canceled eviction, I did ask the audience what they thought, if they thought this week's eviction will be canceled, some sort of reset or prank or whatever. And it was actually pretty split. 42% of the audience said yes, they do think. So a good 42% of our audience genuinely thinks that the eviction will be canceled this week. 58% said no.
I'll be so livid if this week is a reset of some or it doesn't count somehow. Like, I mean, all of the great gameplay, I feel like everything's setting up really great for Cliff and Nicole. If somehow there's a reset and Holly doesn't win HOH, and then we have, we have to live through girl, no. Like, let's again, Julie doesn't lie to us, and she said that there's going to be an eviction, someone will be sent to the jury. Even when they did the reset during BB16, they told us what was going to happen. They told us about the button. We knew that whole week that none of that was counting. We knew that Thursday that none of it was counting. So if they're going to have something this Thursday where, like, there is no eviction, they would tell America. Like, they would say, tune in Thursday to see the, house guests get fooled by prank week, and there will be no eviction. But she didn't say that. She said somebody's going to go to the jury. So again, there's no reset to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, under the assumption that there is no reset, I do think that Holly played this week well. I mean, as well as she could have, considering this whole prankster thing. So, I'm going to go up on Holly. I'm going to give her a 6, just because I do think that with the addition of the prankster, it kind of hurt her relationship with Christy, when really she could have kept it the same and all that. So, and considering the fact that her and Jackson going into next week are pretty big targets, that's why I'm keeping it at 6, but it is increasing from last week.
Yeah, it's still a pretty crazy game for ratings, because I could easily see Holly leaving next week. And I can also easily see her winning the game, because she's in a pretty good spot. I don't love the way that she has played in Power. I think that she is not playing as well as she thinks she is. She really trusts Tommy way more than she should. I did disagree with the decision to keep Christy in the game. I think that might come back to haunt them. I think they would feel much more comfortable heading into next week if they had won this HOH and it was Tommy, Sis, and Jess that they were competing against. That's not the case. It's Tommy, Christie, and Jess, and that's a lot more dangerous, especially because Christie has a lot more influence over Jess than Sis would have, and I think that they would have a much better shot at Jess not coming after them if Christie wasn't there, and Sis wouldn't be competing as well as Christie might. So didn't like that decision. Don't love the decision this week either to keep Christie around. I think that there is a compelling case to be made that keeping Nick around is maybe the better decision, but she is once again making a decision that I'm not sure I'm on board with. However, she's still in a not terrible spot. If she does keep winning HOHs, or if Cliff or Nicole, pull in with one, or, Jackson, they keep trading back and forth, they could continue to do well. And even if they do take a hit, Jackson is the one that is likely going to take that hit, as long as he doesn't win Veto and send her out the door in that spot. And then once Jackson's gone, then I think eyes turn to Cliff and Nicole before they turn to Holly, who's a little more out on her own at that point. So I could absolutely see Holly making it down to the end and winning, but I can't go up to a 7. Just if she was making smart decisions, I think I'd easily have her at a 7. But I'm not in love with her decisions, so I'm going to stay here at a 6.
Yeah, I gave her a 6 last week, and I will go up to 7 this week. I feel pretty good. I don't feel as badly as you do, Taran. I think she has made some mistakes. Obviously, the thing about telling Christie that she was going to be the pawn, she didn't need to, but she couldn't have predicted that she was only going to have one nomination. I know that Julie said that the duties of the HOH will be affected, but on the other hand, it's very tough to predict the way these twists are going to go. I didn't love the way she approached Christie, but on the other hand, I don't feel like there was really any great way to go to Christie. I mean, maybe she could go to Christie and say, look, I'm cashing in the chips from last week. You agreed to be a pawn, so I'm going to put you up on the block. I still feel like in that instance, Christie's not going to be like, oh, okay, fine. I still feel like Christie's going to be like, really? Like, so soon? Like, I still feel like you're going to get the same result from Christie, so I don't even really hold her accountable for that too much. Like, here's the thing. I always feel like the Jackson is her shield in front of her, as we've talked about, and I feel like that she's the most likely winner at this point. I really do. Even more so than Tommy, I feel like that Holly is the most likely winner of the game. I think that she has a sterling resume to point to when she gets to the jury about what she's done. She has good relationships with people. Even Nick at this point, I think, would consider voting for her, and he's not a big fan of Holly. So I feel good about her, and I feel like a 7 is a worthy score.
All right. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think you're probably right. I think she is. Again, it's weird to say because I think she could go home next week.
Yes.
But I think
that's how fluid the game is.
Exactly. And the two people who I think are the safest, or even, definitely the two people I think are the safest in Cliff and Nicole, I think don't have a great shot at the end. And so it really balances things out and makes it a lot harder to predict. So Brent goes with a 7. The audience did go with a 6 once again. So Holly will remain here at a 6 overall. So let's talk about Jackson, who last week received straight 5s from the whole panel here, plus the audience. And I can say personally, I am going to stick with my 5. I actually considered going down, and I also considered going up because this is such a weird game right now. I hate that he won another veto. He looks so threatening. If there was any chance that Tommy was going to go after Cliff and Nicole before Jackson and Holly, I feel like that chance is made even more, even less likely because he's just so threatening. He's such a big target. He is the kind of player that will need to continue to win over and over a lot of competitions down the road. And I don't even have faith that he can keep pulling that off once they get into more mental competitions because he's not the best at studying. So I don't love that, but he did survive yet another week. He didn't even need to win the HOH to do it, so he is capable of playing the next HOH. And he does have 2 people that might not come after him next week in Cliff and Nicole if they win. So I feel like he's still in not a terrible spot. And if things continue to go well for him competition-wise, then he could be sitting there toward the end, especially if they do come after him and he wins the veto and Holly goes home instead. Like that's looking even better. So it's a 5 for me on Jackson. Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my 5 as well. There's just nowhere for me to go with him because I do feel like he is a ripe target next week. On the other hand, he's going to have 2 competitions in order to save himself. He's going to have the HOH and he's going to have the veto most likely, unless there's some weird backdoor at what I guess they'll be 7 people left after this week. So they could still technically backdoor him, I guess. But I feel like he's going to have 2 competitions to save himself. And whenever Jackson has 2 competitions, I feel like you have to probably bet on him. So it's a weird scenario, though. But on the other hand, his gameplay hasn't really lit me up in terms of I feel like he's entirely too trusting of what people what he thinks people are going to do. He was worried about Jessica when in reality I feel like the person he should be most worried about is Tommy, and he doesn't see that currently. Obviously Nicole is putting in work today to maybe open his eyes, and maybe Nick will do so as the week wears on, but right now he shouldn't be trusting Tommy, and he does. And so I feel like all of that together balances out for just an average score for Jackson. Let me say, I've been loving what he's been doing. I don't know if I buy his whole rehabilitation tour and intentionally doing all this stuff, but ever since Jack left, he has been a lot more approachable, a lot more fun in the house. Him had the pie thing with him and Nicole was so fun to watch. It really was a blast on the feeds. And usually I don't like stuff like that, but I really thought that they were all having a great time. And so, I'm cool with Jackson, well, as far as watching him.
Have you heard about his master plan to intentionally gain weight to look more like an average guy?
I have. That's what I've been doing.
Did it work on you?
I feel like, I mean, when I first started the podcast, said that me and you are like just turning heads left and right, Taran, and I felt like I needed to be more approachable to people. So that's why I have my, Coke every now and then, and try to come down with the rabble,
Truly an inspiring figure, this Jackson.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. All of the decisions that Holly made that I disagreed with, Jackson has been on board with those as well, and it's part of why I haven't been super high on Jackson's decision making either. The audience went with a 5 on Jackson as well. So Melissa, are you going to make it a clean sweep once again?
I am, and it was tough for me because I do think that he's been playing a good game. I do like the idea of him and Holly teaming up with Cliff and Nicole, which also like good for them, not only strategy wise, but like image rehabilitation wise. I feel like that was like the smartest thing they could have done because people, really liked the Cliff and Nicole. And now it's like, oh, well, Jackson and Holly, they're saying this was their team all along. They want to work with the good guys, whatever. And so like, I feel like this was very smart on their behalf, but, I love it. I mean, I'm totally getting taken by it. I love the idea of that foursome. So whatever.
Me too.
Yeah. So I do like that. I will say that the reason why I'm not going up on Jackson this week, even though I want to, is because he didn't get his target out last week. And I feel like once you set a target and once you're like, this is the person I want to go, you have to just follow through. I don't know. I feel like while I personally am very, very happy that Christy is staying instead of Sis, I think that he might have made a mistake with that. I think that, he made it very clear to everybody that that was his target. And Christy knows that she was his target. And just because he turns around at the end of the week and is like, okay, you know what? Actually, I'm going to help you stay. It doesn't clean away all the stuff he'd been saying all week about her being his target and she's like enemy number 1 and all that sort of stuff. And I do think that that is a lingering feeling that will come up. So, while I'm happy, I don't know if it's great for Jackson's game that Christy stayed.
Yeah, and I will also say that I think it hurts Jackson even more than it hurts Holly, even though I do think it hurts them both in the jury. The more Jackson tries to defend the move to keep Christy, the more he looks like a mark. The more he looks like, oh boy, you really got snowed hard, didn't you?
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to look to the jury when they watch the tapes. When Sis comes in, she's gonna be like, I don't know how Christy pulled this off, and it's gonna be Sis explaining it to you, and you're gonna be hearing it from Sis, and you're gonna be like, yeah, how did they decide to send you here instead of her? So we'll see.
Yeah.
Next up is Jess, and I can say that last week Jess received a 2 from the audience. This week she also received a 2 from the audience. She also received 2s from myself and Brent. Melissa, you were down at a 1 for Jess. So do you feel the same way?
No, I'm willing to give her a 2. I mean, I think she is sticking around a little bit, unfortunately, maybe. But, I mean, unless, who knows? Like we said, next week, HOH, she gets Jackson out, and she's, like, the biggest contender for a win. Who knows? But I do think that she is kind of a non-entity, and at the same time, while that is not fun to watch, and doesn't make for great gameplay, it is a viable strategy, I guess. It makes it so you're not the first person to walk out the door. So, I'm not, while I'm not impressed with her game, I do think that she will be sticking around for a little bit, and that gives her a 2.
All right, Brent.
Yeah, I'm going to go up a point. I gave her a 2 last week. I'm going to give her a 3 this week. I think that she does have some winner potential. I really do. As much as I hate to say it, even though she's playing a pretty terrible game, even though she really has no alliance to speak of, even though she really, there actually is a way for her to go home next week if Jackson wins HOH, nominates like Jessica and Christy wins the veto. I have to think that probably Jessica's going to go home in that instance. So gosh, I really wish that we would hear more from her. She doesn't really talk on the feeds a lot, except when she's talking. I mean, she talks, but she's not talking strategy out loud about what I really want to hear from her. She does talk to Christy a little bit, but it just is more of a feeling on my part. I share Taran's concern that she could actually, Jessica, put Christy up on the block, even though she loves her as a, well, I need to do it. It's a game move. And she could also be really pissed off about the fact that Big Brother zinged her for being a snooze fest. I think that may also weigh into her decision if she wins an HOH. But you have to, like, as much as we can't stand Jessica, I really do feel like that we have to look at her winner equity at the end and the fact that she is well liked by people, not by everyone, but if she wins another like, here's the thing. In order for Jessica to get to the end, I feel like she's going to win an HOH or 2 along the way. And if she does that and got Jack out, possibly gets Jackson out, and wins her way to the end, I feel like it's going to be really hard to vote against her. But stranger things have happened. So it's a 3 for me.
Brent, how could you be so high on Jess? This is outrageous. Unbelievable. I'm also a 3 on Jess.
You're a 3 on Jess.
I was actually really happy to hear you say that because I thought people were going to be really down my throat about this one. You know what? Look, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and yep. Jess has been pretty lucky in this game. This is a 3 for Jess. Sis leaving was so great for her.
Oh, good.
That's the biggest goat to be taken to the end. Now she's gone. Now Jess is kind of in that spot if anybody wants to bring her along. And so Sis leaves. That's great because Christy feels good about Jess. Now this week it looks like Nick is leaving. That's fantastic for Jess. Nick is one of the people that would have come after her. Now Christy is again still not coming after her. Now all of a sudden it's like, especially now because Nick is leaving in the way that he's leaving, it's likely going to happen that Tommy gets outed as being anti-Jackson and Holly, which means that Jess falls once again probably back behind the radar a little bit in front behind Tommy and Christy in terms of Jackson and Holly, and it's really only Jackson competing next week. And if Nick and Nicole or Cliff win, they're not targeting Jess, they're targeting Tommy or Christy, and I could absolutely see Jess continue to slide by. Now that Sis is gone, she is the prime person to be taken to the end, and she's still capable of winning some of these mental competitions and making a name for herself before she makes it there. I think that she has been very lucky in the last few weeks, and all of a sudden her position is looking a little bit better than it did before. She's still, in my opinion, the least likely to win the game. But again, this is a very fluid game, and anybody can win, and that does include Jess, in my opinion. So it's a 3 from me.
How great is that? I'm just to stop for just a moment, just to say, like, how great is it that everybody can win the game? I mean, last year I knew that there were some people that couldn't win the game. I knew last year there were some people that couldn't even get to the end of the game unless they like literally won out. And this year, it's just such a different story. I mean, talk about a great ending to a season. There are some people who are playing really bad, and makes no mistake. And in fact, like I said before, Nicole is among those people. But I really do enjoy, whether it's good gameplay, bad gameplay, the fluidity of the game really lights me up, and I'm really psyched about it.
Yeah. So I could dial it back just one notch. If Jess wasn't capable of winning the game, I'd be okay with that. But I see your point, and I completely agree. So let's talk about Tommy. Brent, what are your thoughts on Tommy this week? Losing another one of his allies here, and Nick. Probably.
Losing
Or
another
Christy.
one of his allies, and there are people in the game, Cliff and Nicole, and possibly Jessica through like maybe a Jackson Veto win that might get Tommy out of ways for him to leave the game. And as I said before, Cliff and Nicole, if they do put Tommy and Christy up on the block, they have the votes to get him out, no matter what Jackson and Holly say, because Jessica's not going to vote against Christy, and Cliff and Nicole can vote against Tommy, and so they can get rid of him that way. So there are dangers lurking. Also, Nicole is outing him. Also, Nick is probably going to be continually down on Tommy as the week goes on. He realizes he doesn't have his vote, and he's like, well, what else do I have? But I mean, I know he doesn't want to do it, but he might throw Tommy under the bus and really let Jackson and Holly know where some of the bodies are buried, so to speak, and let them know that Tommy is not as loyal to them as they might think, and that they really need to be concerned about Tommy and Christy in the game. But I feel like overall, you really have to hand it to him that he's played really well. It is amazing to me to watch. Before today, Holly and Jackson talking about the fact that they have Tommy, and maybe it's because of his HOH week where he talked about not wanting to betray people, that he couldn't betray people, that he needed to stay true to what he said, or he'd have a bitter jury. And in fact, I feel like that's, as I said before, manifesting itself in some ways, in that if he does go on to lose the game, I feel like it will be because of his own actions in some ways that he manifested a bitter jury. Having said that, I feel like I have grown to have faith in Tommy's social ability to fix things. And even Nick finds it hard, even after Tommy told him that I'm not going to vote for you this week. Nick finds it hard to be mad at Tommy. So I have to go up. I'm going to give him a 6. I gave him a 5 last week. I'll give him a 6 this week. I still feel like, aside from Holly, Tommy is your most likely winner. And it just shows how good the social game of Big Brother is a real rare commodity these days, in that somebody like Tommy can, it's so obvious to us what he's going to do, but he's got people like Holly and Jackson completely snowed just because of how nice he is to them. And I feel like a lot of people, that's not the sexy way to play, but it is a effective way to play.
Yeah, I just heard Tommy say to, I think it was Christy, that he is a lot more emotionless than he lets on in the game. And that's something that I caught on to very quickly when it came to Tommy. And I think that's to his benefit, because we watch Tommy, we have a better idea of who he actually is as a player. But I think that because he is just levelly emotionless most of the time, he's like the Hulk. He's always angry. No, he's always emotionless. And so he's constantly faking emotions with people, and to us it seems very obvious, but because that's all he's ever done with them, they seem to believe it. Nobody seems to see how fake Tommy can be in the house, and I think that he is a lot fake, and that is definitely something in his favor. However, I don't love what he's been doing this week. In particular, I understand, again, his, I think, fear of a bitter jury when it comes to, sorry, Nick, I can't give you my vote. I do not like that move from him. One, because he didn't need to do that. The votes weren't there even with Tommy on board. He didn't realize that yet, but he should have stopped to think and figure that out before letting Nick know. So that by itself, he didn't need to do that. He didn't need to piss Nick off in that way. Then second, by telling Nick so early on in the week, sorry, but just flat out, you're not gonna have my vote no matter what. That basically gives Nick free reign to throw Tommy under the bus for the rest of the week. Now, Nick has not taken up on that essential free reign yet, but I feel like it's only a matter of time, surely. And honestly, even if Nick doesn't do this, I guess you can credit Tommy's social game that he's too in love with Tommy to do it. But man, did he leave that door wide open. And if Nick does throw him under the bus and he gets in trouble with Jackson and Holly and he is on the block next week because of that, then I'm going to be like, Tommy, I really feel like you should have led Nick on a little bit more. Work the jury vote afterward. You never ever had to tell Nick that he wasn't getting your vote. He could have been out the door thinking, oh, Tommy tried his best. But it's not going to be there. So I don't love that move from Tommy. And it does seem like he is getting into some trouble with Jackson Holly from this point already, with Nicole dropping Tommy's name. That's not great. And as we talked about, this idea that he manifested a bitter jury, and now he's kind of in a spot where he kind of needs to win HOH and target Jackson and Holly. But if he does that, they are saying to themselves, oh, if he even tries to put us on the block, he will never get our jury votes. That's not great for Tommy. And Christy surviving last week in the way that she did, sure, it might make the jury more bitter, but it also looks real impressive, especially if Nick goes this week. If she was on death's door, then she calls Nick out, survives the week, and then Nick gets sent home the next week. That does not look like Jackson and Holly did it. That looks like, what the hell did Christy do? How are her pheromones this powerful? I think she takes all the credit for it. And a jury that's trying to vote for gameplay will definitely choose Christy over Tommy, in my opinion. So I think that he's really, again, he's been sitting on a gold mine all season long, and it's just been stolen away from him all season. And now he's just sitting on a few gold coins, and he's like, oh man, I'm trying to hold on, but it's not looking great. So I am still, despite all of that, gonna stay with my 6, because I do agree, Brent. I think he's probably the second most likely person to win the game at this point. But really, I'm starting to think that Christy might start to overtake him. Unfortunately for Christy, she is still on the block, and there is a chance she might go home this week, so I can't put her above Tommy quite yet. Also, I think she's still a bigger target than Tommy heading into next week, and so on and so forth. But Tommy's stock is dropping for me every single week that he is not turning it around, and it's not looking great, Melissa.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in agreement with you guys on this one. I like the fact that a lot of people seem to trust Tommy and want to work with Tommy, even though they really shouldn't. So I think that bodes well for him. However, the fact that Nick, first of all, he told Nick, like you said, essentially giving him free reign to use any information he has against him. And not only that, but Nick does have information against Tommy, that Tommy is coming after Jackson and Holly. And that is something that Nick absolutely could use. However, does Tommy's social game prevent Nick from doing that because Nick still loves Tommy and wants to work with him or whatever? Or does Nick decide to go and use that information? And really, we don't know yet. It's possible by the end of this week, we're like, oh man, Tommy's game is over. It's done. But right now, Tommy seems to be in a decent position. So, I'm going to stick with my 6 as well, because I feel like there's too many chances for this to go wrong for me to increase his score. However, I don't want to decrease his score, because there's also the fact that his social game has been so great for him that everybody is like, oh, well, we can't go against Tommy. We can't go against Tommy. That might change by the end of the week, but right now, that's where it is.
I just got a tweet from Susie on Twitter. This was sent to you guys as well, and it blew my mind. Susie says the perfect showman's name for Jolly is Macbeth.
Oh, that's
that's
brilliant.
Well done.
Brilliant.
Macbeth.
Well done, Susie.
That's actually very.
Actually, I wasn't talking about the name. I was actually talking about the fact that you actually got Taran to read a DM like that.
No, it was a mention.
That was the real victory there. Anyway, go ahead.
That's a good one. All right, so
Macbeth. All right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's gonna be the hashtag. The audience agrees with us. The audience goes with a 6 for Tommy, so it's gonna be straight 6s for Tommy this week. All right, let's move on to Nicole. Nicole, who got 6s from myself and Brent last week, 5s from Melissa and the audience. I'll start with Nicole here. Nicole is continuing to be in a great spot. I think that Sis leaving for Nicole was actually pretty good, but Nick leaving this week is kind of bad. I don't love where this puts Nicole. I think that she's right to be worried about a Jackson and Holly Final Four. I think that she's right to think that Cliff is closer to them than she is. Jackson and Holly have talked about how they actually would prefer to see Cliff in the end with them than basically anybody else, and that includes Nicole. So she's actually fourth on that list, and maybe that changes when they realize that she's probably easier to beat. But Jackson and Holly, they love Cliff. They love them some Cliff, and they want to lose to Cliff if they're going to lose to anybody. And so she definitely doesn't want to be down to the 4 with those people, nor does Cliff particularly, I don't think. But it's even worse for her if that does happen. She's losing Nick. She doesn't even really have Jess all that much. She still talks to Jess, but so does Cliff, and so does Christy, and so she doesn't really have Jess, and it just doesn't look great. Her prospects in the game, she's still in a great spot. She's still probably the safest person in the house, including Cliff. But her end game is looking more precarious than it did even just a week ago. And I again, she's gonna have to start winning some competitions, and she's gonna have to like really pull some out. Maybe she can beat Cliff because Cliff is being more aggressive in his deal making and potentially going back on them, but it's almost looking like she's more likely to be the one going against the deals, and I think that Cliff is okay with that. Kind of like, yeah, you go ahead and take that shot for me. So I'm going down on Nicole, and I don't. I still think that she is, again, pretty likely. I think that like Jess, she doesn't have a great chance in the final 2, but unlike Jess, she's a lot more likely to get there, and I think has more ability to win some votes to her cause than Jess does at that point. So I'm going to go down to a 5 for Nicole. If things continue to go against her in the game, I will probably continue to move down. But right now, I do think that it's a 5. There's still a chance that that Nick stays this week, and that could really save Nicole. Once he's definitely gone, and if she's not able to reposition, then it might start to look even worse for her as time goes on. So that's where I am. Brent, you were also at a 6 last week. Where are you this week?
Obviously, you can tell that I'm not that happy with Nicole's gameplay. I think it's been pretty shabby. And again, she's only has the Big Brother gods to think that other people are currently playing worse than she is. I wish that she would play better than she does. And she plays with her heart too much. And as I said before, I can certainly respect that as someone who wears his heart on his sleeve a lot. I understand where you're coming from, Nicole, but you're actually in the game. It's like, hello, you're actually playing the Big Brother game. You are in there. And I know she finds that crazy, like, wow, I'm in the Big Brother house, but start playing, woman. I'm really sick of the wishy-washy attitude in terms of not being sure what to do, not being sure how to move forward. As Taran talked about, she's losing Nick most likely this week, and I think you can make a somewhat argument. I think Doom was in the chat talking about it, that maybe this is good for Nicole, that she's so tied with Nick that maybe him leaving her, being able to spread her wings a little bit more could be advantageous for her. But it must be said, though, she's losing an ally in Nick by him going home, and she's 4th with Holly, Jackson, and Cliff. She's got no bird, she's got no bush, so I feel like you have to go down a point. So I was a 6 last week as well. I'm going to give her a 5 this week. Just play better, Nicole.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think that, like, if she was a better player, a more aggressive player, then losing Nick could be a benefit to her, because she can easily start playing the middle in between, Jackson, Holly, and Tommy and Christy, and she could reel Jess in, like pull her in more aggressively, and try to pit these sides against each other, and really make sure that that you are protected on all angles, and that you get down to the end with the people that you want. And in particular, that would probably mean somebody more along the lines of like Christy and Tommy than Jackson and Holly, who would choose Cliff over her. But I just don't see her doing that. I think that she will probably lose Nick and be like, well, I guess I gotta just go along with what Cliff wants now. And what Cliff wants is not necessarily the best for Nicole. So it's the way things go. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this one's a tough one for me. I'm like teetering on the edge here because I feel like she's in a pretty good position. She's being asked to join a Final Four. She right now has Nick, has Jess. People don't really seem to be targeting her. There's bigger fish to fry. So that's all seemingly very good, but I'm becoming less and less confident in her ability to do anything with that position and with the people that she has on her side. So it's making me a little nervous, not to mention the fact that she's likely losing Nick this week, who is an ally of hers. Also, that whole thing where she wouldn't promise them, or she wouldn't actually say she was in the final four, that kind of hit me in a wrong way, because I just was like, what are you doing? I don't know. I just feel like she's so hesitant now, and she doesn't want to commit to anything. And I feel like that's going to bite her in the end, because people want someone who wants to work with you and who wants to move forward with you. And I feel like she's kind of just like, I don't know. I don't really want to do anything. And that's kind of disappointing. So I'm between keeping at a 5 and going to a 4. Just because I don't know. I want to give her a better score. I don't know if I have the faith in her anymore to do what's best for her game. But I'm just going to keep it at a 5, because there's a chance that Nick stays, and there's also a chance that even if Nick goes, that's a good thing for her. So I'm just going to keep it at a 5.
All right, the audience agrees. A 5 from the audience as well, which means straight 5s. Really in a lot of alignment on these ratings here so far. Let's talk about Cliff, and we can start with the audience on Cliff. The audience gave Cliff a 6 this week, which is what they gave him last week. But I can also say that Cliff received the highest average rating of anybody left in the house. He almost made a 7.
That's surprising.
From the audience.
Well, he made a 7 with me. I'm giving him a 7. I gave him a 6 last week, and I'm going to bump him up a point. I think he has played really, really well this week. I don't think there's anybody in the house that's playing a better game than Cliff right now. It is strictly by the fact that I do feel like that his in-game path is a bit cluttered. I don't know how he gets to the end. I mean, there are a few ways we can talk about, but I do feel like that it's probably a tough go. And Jackson and Holly are saying we'd like to bring Cliff now. We'd rather lose to him now. But once Cliff and Nicole are sitting on the block at the final 5, at the final 4, I feel like they might have a different answer then. So I would give him even a higher score if it were not for that fact. But week-wise, I think that he's played wonderfully in terms of giving Holly and Jackson assurance. They trust him. His word is good. He still hasn't had to betray anybody. Everybody still thinks that Cliff's word is good. He's gotten to what's going to be the final 7, having his word intact, and still has credibility to use in his game. Obviously, we talked about, I can't remember, maybe it was on a podcast, maybe in the morning update, how Cliff went to Christy and said, use that credibility. He spent some of that credibility to say, look, I don't want Nicole to go up on the block if you win HOH, if I vote for you to stay. So you can argue that was a mistake, but I'm not going to penalize him too much for that, because I feel like that he was just playing with his heart, and we all do that sometimes. So it's 7 for me. And even though I'm giving him a higher score, I don't feel like he is the more likely winner between Holly and Tommy or even Christy, but I feel like I like how he's playing his game and what is in front of him currently.
All right, Melissa.
This one's tough, because I mean, I feel like they're all pretty tough. I don't know. I feel like if you look at our ratings, like we're all pretty middling on everybody. Like everyone's kind of in that same
state of the house.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it's kind of surprising. Usually we have or at least for the past few seasons, we've had, some people way up there, and then a bunch of people down below, and then that's that. And it's interesting that even at this far into the game, we have people.
Let me ask you this question before you give your rating. So is there anybody in the house currently that would target Cliff? See, I think the answer is no.
I think the answer is not currently, but I do feel like there is still a chance. Like the house is still fluid enough that he could be targeted. But your point stands though. He is one of the safest people in the house.
Yeah, and do you feel like that he has made any mistakes over the past week?
I don't.
I don't think he's made mistakes.
Oh, no, sorry. I do, actually.
What?
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say I'm a little worried about his reassurances about Nicole, and then, if Nicole ends up not... I'm worried about Nicole ending up burning him with this Holly Jackson Macbeth thing.
It wasn't this week, but it was over the course of since we last talked. Him talking to Christy and letting her know that him and Nicole are a package deal, and also him telling Nick that he would use him as a pawn before the HOH. Apparently Nick misheard this and thought that he was telling him he wouldn't use him as a pawn, but he'd actually said that the other thing, and I didn't love that move either. But overall, I think that you make good points. I think that Cliff is somebody making the fewest amount of mistakes in the house at the moment, and is also one of the safest people in the house. So go on, Melissa.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel good about his position right now. I like the fact that he's solidified something with Jackson and Holly. And I think that, he's in with Nicole. I don't see people, outright targeting Cliff at this point in time, which is good. And also, not only that, I think it's different from my opinion of Nicole. I do feel like I have faith in Cliff. I mean, yeah, he's made a few errors, but I do think he has a good head on his shoulders for strategy. And he's hungry. He's hungry to play the game, where I feel like Nicole is not. I feel she's not hungry to play the game.
He's also hungry for Whataburger.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I do feel pretty good about Cliff. It's hard for me because I want to give him the 7, but I don't know if I want to give him the highest score out of everybody. But I mean, if he earns it, he earns it. So I'll just give him a 7.
There it is. All right. So a 7 from Melissa. It's going to be a 6 from me.
Taran.
I agree with all of the points. I think Cliff is one of the smartest people in the house. I think that he is playing one of the best games in the house. He started from a lot less than everybody else, and he has really been working his way forward. But I still have so much concern for how does he get to the final 2. That's still a major thing for me. I do think that he has made progress. He's made progress in a couple different ways. Nick leaving is actually pretty good for him. Because it frees Nicole up to be more loyal to him. Nick was also a big competition threat. Locking in this deal with Holly and Jackson is great because they are much bigger targets ahead of him. And even if worst case scenario, nobody ever takes the shot at them, he can always do it himself, or he still has an okay chance to win some mental competitions against them in the final, 5, 4, 3, whatever. Not 3, sorry, 5 or 4. The problem though, and he also has made progress with them in terms of they might now take him over Nicole. It's not like a total deadlocked situation where they would never take him to the end if they were not taking each other. If it was just Jackson left, I could see him taking Cliff over Nicole or something along those lines. And both Nicole and Jess are still in the game, which is great. He could end up in the final 3 with them, which is a really, really great spot. But there's still a long road ahead. Still a lot of dangers to navigate. Still a very fluid game, and he's at such a disadvantage heading into that final 3 competition that it's going to be hard for me to really start feeling like I think that Cliff has got this. So it's a 6 for Cliff for now, which isn't going to matter because he will go up to that 7. So there you go. And that's the highest average rating of anybody so far.
Excellent.
All right, let's talk about Nick.
Oof.
Last week, Nick got a 3. And it didn't look like he was about to go home at that point in time. I think that Nick simultaneously increased his odds of winning a jury vote, and then also dramatically increased the target on his back, and now looks like he is going home. Like I talked about with Nick before, I compared him to, like, not necessarily that he was playing with the strategic acumen of Junsong, but he was playing a similar style of game where everybody knew what he was doing, and they thought he was a scumbag and shady, and they hated it. But they couldn't do anything about it because of the position it was. And Nick, I think, played too emotionally. He didn't want to be the scumbag. He didn't want people to hate him. He wanted people to like him. He wanted to be honest. And because of that, he was like, no, I am not a scumbag. I am not playing all sides. These are the people I'm loyal to. And the second you do that, you lose the positioning, that you no longer are in the spot where people can't touch you because positionally they can't do it. Obviously, always when somebody is in that spot, they have people that they would rather work with. But the second you make that known, and not only make it known that you'd rather work with them, but that you are deathly loyal to them, that tarnishes everything that you've accomplished up until that point. And his emotions, in my opinion, really trapped him, and then he made this terrible mistake with America's Prankster. I almost wish I could give him a 1, but I do think there's still a decent chance he survives the week, so I'm gonna give him a 2. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that, he lost his positioning when, he was in a pretty good position in the House, and it's kind of unfortunate.
He really was.
He just totally blew it up. He blew up his own game, and then I also think, the mismanagement of the prankster thing wasn't great for him. I do think there is a chance that he stays, just because who knows anymore? Anything can happen, especially when you're up against Christie. But it's not looking good for him. And it is contingent, I think, on whether he reveals this information that he has on Tommy to Jackson and Holly. However, he seems to be very into Tommy, and it makes it unlikely that he would turn on him. But if he does, then great, and he stays in the house, and that's that. But who knows at this point? So I'm going to give him a 2 as well.
Yeah, and I apologize. I've been talking about I think there's a chance for Nick to stay. I haven't actually explained why I think that way. I've talked about it on other podcasts, but not on this one, I think. I do, as we talked about, if Nick throws Tommy under the bus and says, Tommy is coming for you. He told me before the HOH he was coming for you. Tommy is the person that Christie named when Christie approached me, or I approached her, or whatever it was. When she talked about I talked to somebody else about making peace with you. That person was Tommy. They are really tight. He promised to keep her. That's for a reason. That they are working together and they are working against you. And I am willing to make a deal, and I will stay true to that deal because I have been honest, and that's gotten me in trouble. But I have been honest, and I promise you, I had that power. I could have put you on the block, but I didn't. I will make a deal with you. I promise I will not go after you. I think he would actually stay true to that deal because that's just kind of Nick. Or at least, at the very least, he's more likely to stay true to that deal than Christie would be. And that could get them thinking in a new way. Right now, they think they're really solid because they think that Tommy and Christie are on their side. If they are convinced that that's not the case, then I do think this vote can flip. That path is very available. Whether or not Nick takes it, whether or not he executes on it well, that's one of the major questions. 2 of the major questions there. Of course, it still might not work, but unlike last week when I felt like where is the path in front of Christie? There was none. She had to take some dynamite and blow open her own path. There's a path right there for Nick, and I do feel like it's possible for him to walk it and make it happen. So that's what I mean when I say I feel like there's a chance he could stay this week. There are roads open to that possible scenario.
Yeah, I hear ya, but I'm still giving him the paddle. I give him a 1. I take your point, though. I take your point, okay? But I really do feel like that he is hindered by the fact that this sort of thing just happened last week. There was a big flip right before the eviction last week. And for that to happen again, I feel like people are like, they're going to say to themselves, we're really going to do this again? Even if he does come with the Hail Mary, which he's shown no ability to do so previously in throwing Tommy under the bus, which he absolutely needs to do. And Tom, again, I'm just talking about gameplay alone. Look at all of the advantages that he has had this week. He was in a great position before Taco Tuesday, then completely stepped in it when he said in open company, because he just didn't want to look like a scumbag in front of Jackson and Holly, when Christie asked him, so did you promise safety to Jackson Holly? He's like, I never promised safety to Jackson Holly. They know that. But he actually kind of did promise safety to them when he went to them and made a deal before the HOH competition. He had promised them that. So to say openly to Jackson Holly, hey, I'm not with you. That just let them know, he's totally against us. If he wins HOH, we're totally going up on the block. Add to that America's prankster power. He had all the advantages in the world to be able to use that to his advantage. And the one time we need somebody to tell somebody about their power, and he doesn't do it. So it's really, I mean, like, I just feel like I have to give him a 1 on principle alone. I know that Taran views a 1 as somebody we're completely done with, and maybe there is a way for Nick to come back. But given what he's shown me over the past week and his current position going out the door, I feel like you have to go with the 1 here.
All right. The audience did go with a 2. So it's going to be a 2 overall for Nick. And that brings us to Christy, which I imagine was one of the main choices for a purchase in the stock watch over the last week, because she was rated a 2 last week and then she stayed. It was still kind of a risky buy because she is now on the block and she still could go home. She might have stayed at a 2 if it was looking like Christy was the target instead of Nick, but as of right now that doesn't seem like it's the case. Brent, you did go down to a 1 on Christy last week.
Yes.
How are you going to rectify that this week?
I'm going to rectify it by giving her a 7.
Whoa!
I really am. I'm going to give her a 7 this week. I think she has played masterfully. I think she's been helped by Sis, but who's played completely horribly. And honestly, this is just how I feel. Look, I know everybody and their mother bought Christy stock. Obviously, I did too. It's not going to do me any good because everyone else did it. That's not where I'm coming from. Look, you have to look at the way things look on the game board. She's going to stay this week if things stay as they are. And if things stay as they are, that means she's going into Final 7 where Holly cannot play for HOH. And then she has an opportunity to take her shot. She's openly said, look, after I'm the pawn, I'm done with it, with being nice to them. I'm going to put them on the block if I win HOH. To Tommy, I feel like Tommy would love to have Christy win HOH and do it for him so he wouldn't have to do it himself. I also feel like if Cliff or Nicole win HOH, that Tommy is more likely to go home instead of Christy in that scenario. So I feel like that she really has a shot to win this game. I said earlier that I feel like Tommy is the more likely, second runner-up in terms of, or runner-up in terms of people most likely to win the game. But I think Christy's number 3. I really do like her chances to win the game. She's certainly capable of getting there. She's played well. And here's the thing. You can argue about my score, but she's given me what I really needed to see from her. Her back was against the wall and she was hungry as hell to try to find a way out of it. I loved them showing that after she survived the vote, and we all knew she was safe at that point, but then her going back to the bedroom and exhaling and saying, thank you, God, thank you, God. And you can see how much this really means to her. So, you guys, she can win the game. I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys don't like the chat is really coming for me before, but she is going into a week where she survived the block. Again, if she gets to the end, I have to rank her number 1 in terms of all the people remaining in the game as far as if they get to the end, they're winning. I think Christy, number 1 out of anybody remaining in the game. If she gets to the end of the game, she's winning. And I have to feel like also that Cliff and Nicole won't come after her. They'll come after Tommy. If Jackson wins, that's the one person I think that would really go after Christy. And with only 4 people voting, he would have tiebreaker power and he'd have the power to send her home. So that's the one person you really have to worry about. But I like where she's at right now, and I'm excited to see what happens to her. She makes me smile. I like Christy.
I have to imagine this is a record 1 to 7. I think that's the biggest jump I think we've ever seen in this. And honestly, I think maybe a 7 might also be the highest rated person a person has ever been while on the block. So setting records here. It's okay. That one tells us you're not always the best at predicting those things.
Well, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
All right. Do you agree with my assessment that she is, of the people remaining, if she gets to the end, she is the most likely winner of the game? I think she has the most winner equity out of everybody in terms of if she gets there.
I agree. I think that I think
I'm not smoking crack on that.
No, I think that she has the hardest time against Tommy because I do think Tommy gets Sis and Jack. But apart from that, I think she probably beats Tommy at this point, and that's one of the reasons why I'm lower on Tommy now. I think that she has Tommy. I think that she has made a great this move, saving herself from the block. It's a great resume builder. It really makes her look impressive. Now, she might lose Jackson and Holly's votes if she's the one that comes after them. If Tommy's the one that comes after them, then maybe he's the one that loses those votes. Who knows? But that's a tricky situation. They could end up mattering if it comes down to her versus somebody else. But I agree. I think that she has become the front runner in a final two situation. But for me, the problem right now is that she is on the block and she still might go home. And even if she does survive this week, which it does look like she will, heading into next week, I do feel like she has a strong likelihood of going home there too. Even if Nicole and Cliff are like, well, we'll put up Tommy and Christy, I feel like they won't mind too much which one of them goes home. And I think that if they start to think about it more, especially, so like let's imagine a scenario where Tommy gets blown up this week and the tension between Tommy and Jackson and Holly reaches its peak heading into the following week. I don't think Nicole and Cliff are as concerned with Tommy as they were before. I think the reason they want to go after Tommy right now is that they're concerned about his relationship to Jackson and Holly. But if Tommy no longer has a relationship with Jackson and Holly, I think that they are much more willing to be like, well, Christy's now the bigger threat because she has a connection to Jess that Tommy doesn't have. And she's also very scary in the game and so on and so forth. So I think that she could absolutely leave next week, especially if she's on the block next to Tommy or even somebody like Jess. So I think that she still has a long road ahead of her, but she's quickly becoming one of the players I have the most amount of faith in when it comes to surviving. And so if I you know, all outside situations excluded, if I'm just looking at who do I have more faith in to save themselves on the block, at this point, I'm starting to say I think I have more faith in Christy to survive than I do Tommy. And so I don't want to discount that either when looking at a potential situation moving into next week. But she has to survive this week first. And she has to like get through some of the tough terrain, in my opinion. I'm down at a 4 on Christy right now, just because she could go home this week, and I don't want to be stuck at a 7 when she's walking out the door. I think that 4 is fair for now. If she survives the week and she's not on the block next week, then this could definitely move even further up for me. But right now, there's still too much immediate danger that she has to wade through, which is a lot more than most of the other players in the house. So, Melissa, where do you stand on this one?
Yeah, I honestly thought I was gonna have to defend myself for my score. Like I was already planning, like, okay, like this is what I'm gonna say because I know people are gonna come for me because I was gonna give her a 4.
There you go.
And
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have to do anything. But you know, I agree with everything you guys are saying. Look, last week when she stayed, that was amazing. I thought it was fantastic. We thought she, you know, we had like a little like, okay, maybe she might say, who knows what could happen, anything could happen. But like the odds are she wasn't going to stay. And she pulled that out of thin air. And I was very impressed with it. I would be happy with a Christy win in the end because I do think she's played a good game and I think she's hungry for it. And that's what I really care about. I mean, you know, when she's crying and she's in the bedroom, like Brent said afterwards, being like, thank you. Like, I can't believe it. Like, that makes me happy that she stayed because can you see any situation where Sis is doing that? Where Sis is like, oh, thank God I'm still here. No.
After Christy left, Sis would have been like, oh, I just hate being here. Now I'm out without Christy.
And now I don't have any friends.
I'm just hitting a wall.
I literally, like, I mean, I love players that want to be there and that are hungry for the win. And that's why I'm absolutely, you know, I'd be happy with the Christy win. Absolutely. I'm glad that Christy stayed this week for sure.
So why are you giving her a 4 if she was so amazing?
She is on the block. First of all, there's a huge chance that she goes home this week. Not only that, she makes this whole deal with Jackson and Holly about like, I'll be a pawn. I don't care. Like whatever you want to do. And I'm like, yeah, Christy, get him. Like, you promise your life when you're in that position, you've got to do that. But then the second the next week comes and they're like, okay, well, let's like uphold your end of the deal. We kept you. She's like, oh, I didn't think this was actually going to happen. It's like, well, what did you think? Like, that's what you told them you would be willing to do. Like, even if in your mind, you're like, I hope they don't put me up as a pawn. You can't like say that to them because that makes them not trust you. So she's already making people not trust her.
But to stop you right there, I feel like that we come after people so many times for just like, people are like, well, I'm going to use you as a pawn and them not pushing back. I feel like it was okay for her to push back. I was just more concerned with how she pushed back.
Well, yeah, but also at the same time, like part of the deal was that like that will be a pawn, and they were like, okay, you'll be a pawn. Like I wouldn't have promised to be a pawn. Like I know you have to promise everything, but like I don't know if that's something I would have promised.
You should push back when there's reason to push back, but when you literally just made a deal to say, no, I'll absolutely go on the block, don't push back.
Yeah, because then it makes you look like you're backing out on your deal after they upheld their end of the deal. It's like, okay, so now that you've given me what I want, like now I don't know if I'm going to give you what you want. Like it doesn't look good. So, as much as I want to give Christy a better score, I think that I'm waiting because she is on the block this week. She's still a big target. It's not like she's made any headway with people in terms of like making people trust her or becoming in a new alliance or anything like that. So I hope that next week I can give her a better score. But, right now I'm trying to be a little conservative considering that we gave her a 2 last week.
Yeah, I would predict that if 2 weeks from now Christy is still in the house, she's probably the highest rated person in the game. But it's a rocky couple weeks. And rockiest, I think she has the hardest time surviving the next few weeks, apart from Nick, of anybody in the house. So that's it's just right now there's a lot of danger here. The audience is more on our side than Brent's side, I will say, Melissa. The audience went with a 5 for Christy. Okay. Yes, so a little bit higher than us, but
I appreciate that
still lower
because
than
I did think the audience was going to be like, well, we hate Christy, so we're going to give Christy a 1 or a 2. It's like, okay, that's enough. Give a real score. So I'm glad that they did.
Yeah, this along with maybe the Jess week, this is one of the bigger jumps, I think, from the audience, from a 2 to a 5. Mm-hmm. So
should have jumped more.
That's so I mean, as it stands, a 2 to a 5, that's a huge jump, and this is going to have a big impact on the stock watch prices here. So let's check some out. You guys want to check out the leaderboard?
What happened with Christy?
Yeah.
All right, there's gonna be some high scores here. All right, here we go. Leaderboard.
Oh, wow, holy shit.
Oh my God.
Blue Tortoise takes the lead here with $3,400 bought all the way into
31 Christie's.
I realized how it happened. Because of the way we do our pricing, it's always like this week's score over last week's score. So it's like the numerator and the denominator. And then when I gave her a high score and it ended up, and the audience helped as well, I must say, it's a 5. And I think she was rated, her price was a $3 last week, but she was rated a 2 last week. So this week's rating over last week's rating was like, 5 over 2, which is like a massive multiplier. And then add to that the fact that her price was already $3 last week, and she went up to $11. I'm sorry, what was it? $8. She went up to $8. My goodness, that is amazing.
Massive increase. Wow. Unfortunately, Alaska May here did not go in on Christy.
What were you not paying attention on Thursday, Alaska May? What happened?
Well, but I do think this was a reasonable choice. Again, Christy is on the block this week and absolutely could have been the target this week. But
you can sell before Thursday. Like, I mean, why wouldn't you do it? Like, we knew by Thursday, or was it Wednesday? Maybe Wednesday night that Christy was going to stay. At that point, why wouldn't you buy Christy? Is what I'm asking. When she was priced at $3.
Because by today, Christy, the veto could have been Nick could have won the veto. Sure. It's Christy versus Jess on the block. Christy's definitely going home.
But I don't feel like she's going lower than No,
and if she stays at 2, you lose a big chunk of your money.
That's true. I feel like, oh well, whatever.
And since everybody was doing it, if you were the one person that didn't do it, then you've basically it was a risky play, but it was the Alaska May went for it. Didn't pay off. Alaska May falling to 26th place, below me in 23rd. And Blue Tortoise is going to take the lead there with Noodles in second place. So I'm going to shoot up a bit here to 23rd, slowly making my way back from that dumb forgetting to sell mistake. Then Kirsten here in 36th with 1,000, and Puya with 1,000. And then we go down, and there's Mary. Mary did not buy into Christy. Mary went with some other people.
How is she ahead of me if she didn't buy into Christy?
Yeah,
there was I.
where's Brent? Yeah, I skipped over Melissa. Where is Brent? I must have. Oh, here he is.
There's Brent. Go down.
Yes, Brent, you're just above Mary there.
69.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
773.
69, fabulous.
How did I get all the way down there then? What happened
Did
to me?
you go in on Christy? Doesn't look like it.
No, I got some Christy.
You bought 8 Christy.
Exactly.
I bought 8.
I bought like
I bought,
150.
One Christy, and like I had already had Christy. I just didn't sell her.
Yes. So
By the way,
I
Kenny's in the
currently have double Brent's money.
Yeah, whatever. Good job, Taran. We'll see how the season shakes out. This was like a no-brainer to me buying Christy. I felt like compelled to buy Christy because I felt like her price was already so low. Even if she, looked likely to leave this week, I felt like between the fact that how well she had played, also the fact that there's always a chance for her to stay. I just feel like there wasn't a lot to lose by going in on Christy this week, and a lot to be gained if things work out the way that you wanted them to. So I don't know. I feel like it was probably a bad call. Kenny's in the chats like saying that never ever should Brent trade stocks for real. You would not know this, but previous to me, becoming a dealer and going back into table dealing as I do right now. When I first started dating Jay, my partner, I was day trading for like a year, and I actually did okay, but I definitely made a few stupid decisions here and there. So I'm not always crazy, Kenny.
I don't know if anybody would have predicted that Brent would have gone up to a 7 on Christy either this week. That maybe the profits wouldn't have been quite so high.
I just love her. I feel like she's playing great, and I'm psyched to see her. She's alpha woman, and I'm just here for it. She's giving me. She's like Vanessa. She's giving me everything that I want to see in a Big Brother player. She's like Rachel. I'm here for the hungriness.
All right. So I asked you to rate the episodes of Big Brother this week, and you said 6.1, which is up from a 6 the previous week. Rating the feeds at a 5.9, which is down a bit from last week, 6.2 from last week. And then the season as a whole, a 5.7, up from the 5.5 of last week. We're still slowly climbing up that scale on the season as a whole. I really feel like by the end of the season, I think we're going to get up to like if things continue to play out well, I think we'll get up to at least a 7 for the season. I feel that's how I'm feeling right now. I think the season right now is like at an 8 or a 9, maybe an 8. And then the season before was at like a 4 or a 3. And so I feel like we'll get to a 7. I feel like there's enough good stuff here in the second half of the season.
They've been doing a really good job editing. I mean, you guys have to really hand it to them in terms of what they've been able to put together from an editing standpoint, because I feel like that Big Brother Canada always, not to throw too much shade at them, but falls short in this particular avenue. And so I'm psyched to see that the editors of Big Brother US are really using a Sunday episode to fill in a lot of the gaps from what we're missing. We just don't normally get that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's so important because I feel like it would be just as easy to be like, okay, well that week's over, so let's just like move on to the next week. Okay, let's do some fun segments. Let's have a good time. But I like that they fill us in on all the details that's been going on and like why people make these choices and why certain people stay. I feel like that's so crucial to understanding people's position in the game and like where the game is heading. If we know, like if we can take a look back and see why someone stayed over someone else, I feel like it's so important, and it's hard to fit that all in on a Thursday night live show. So I love it.
And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love what they're doing with the Sunday episodes, where they're going back and filling in the details, which is such a stark contrast. I'm able to just feel so, and not to say that it's perfect, because it's far from perfect, but I have so much more faith in Big Brother in Big Brother US to show me the things I want to see than Big Brother Canada, where it's just like I like if I see even 1/10 of what I want to see, I'm like, oh, we saw something.
Right.
I don't know why that is. Just experience, or I don't know.
I think they just have more faith in the gameplay, which is odd to say, but in comparison to the other show, yeah. Rank the players from your favorite to your least favorite. We have Cliff in the number 1 spot, maintaining his shifted number 1 spot over Nicole, but Nicole is not far behind in number 2. Man, this is interesting. So, who do you guys think is in last place here?
Nick? No, Jess.
Yes, it's Jess. Jess in last place, followed by Nick, and then Christy. Christy third to last, and Jackson is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th overall.
So wait, it goes
Cliff, Nicole, Holly, Tommy, Jackson, Christy, Nick, and Jess.
Cliff, Nicole, Holly, Tommy, Jackson,
Christy, Nick, Jess. Yeah.
Wow, I got it. Oh man, I'd be so good at these comps.
Really, too. I don't. I'm with Rob. I heard him saying on the Sunday night episode he doesn't understand why there's so much vitriol on social media about Christy. And I know that some people are not loving the fact that she's in there with the arguably the childhood friend in Tommy, and someone who obviously was related to somebody she was dating for 7 years. All that's true, but I do feel like that even if that maybe it was you, Taran, or maybe it was Kirsten who said this last night, that even if that wasn't true, I still feel like people would be as mean to Christy as they are. Like, even if she wasn't there with Tommy, even if she hadn't dated his aunt for 7 years, even if they weren't childhood friends, even if Tommy wasn't even in the house, I still feel like people would still feel this way about Christy. And I have to say that get a life, people, because she's doing her best, and she's got her own quirks. But like, we live for this kind of stuff on TV, whether you love to hate her or you just hate her outright. I feel
I don't see why people don't think she's entertaining. Like, I feel like she's
amazing.
Yeah, she's giving us a lot on the show, and yeah, sure, she's dramatic and she cries a lot and whatever, but like, so do I, so I can't judge her.
Yeah, I'll say it again. I feel like Christy is absolutely going to be the sort of like once the season is over, people will look back on it and be like, "Oh, remember Christy? Oh yeah."
So much fun with all the manifestations and the universe. I mean, like, she was an alternate. Like, she's a freaking she's like the clear and away the person who's the all-star this season to me. With
how much like love Vanessa gets, I remember people really hating on Vanessa. But like when you do, like, and there are annoying parts to Vanessa and Christy and lots of players when you're watching them in the moment. But then when you're not having to watch them 24/7, you remember the good parts. You remember the good things they brought you, and the little annoyances, they don't drag them down as much, I think.
I also think I think you guys mentioned this on the other podcast, but I think it also depends on how she behaves when she comes out of the house. If she's fun and funny about it, like Caitlyn is, and like kind of takes it all in stride, then, people will love her, and they'll like, or at least they'll like her a lot more, and they'll, get over all this like crazy hate. Whereas if she comes out and kind of Elena's it, and I feel like that does not end up going well for her. So I feel like there's varying degrees of how this can go, but I would hope that she comes out and can kind of take this in stride, and everyone can kind of get over this. I
feel like she'll pay attention to the love and quickly learn to ignore the hate. She's gonna have to, otherwise she'll suffocate. But I'm hopeful that she will once she's out of the house. And people say the biggest thing that they hate about Christy is that she's a hypocrite. I'm like, show me a Big Brother player who isn't a hypocrite. There's a lot of people in the house who are hypocrites.
I did get that a lot. When I asked, like, what is the reason you hate Christy, it was like, she's a hypocrite and she is like overly emotional and annoying. Like, I feel like you could say that about me.
Weak sauce.
So I'm like, oh God, I hope people aren't saying that about me. Those are all traits that you could say.
And the jaw thing, the chewing, like we love this stuff about people. Like it helps us remember all like the funny, quirky stuff.
I'm incredibly used to watching people being hypocritical on the feeds that it's really not. If I wanted to use that against people, then I'd be against almost everybody. So
yeah, for real.
But I feel like people are maybe sometimes selective about it. That they already dislike somebody, and then that becomes a reason because it's an easy reason to point out.
Stacked is reminding me that my tea at the beginning of the season that Kat got somebody bounced from the cast because she had leaked the fact that she was going to be on Big Brother. This woman, I can't remember, I think her name was Jenna. That's the reason why Christy ended up on the show. So we have Kat to thank for Christy, allegedly.
But I actually hate that because I think we would have gotten Christy on a different season, and that would have been much better because Tommy wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, maybe.
All right.
Not your fault, Kat.
Who was the best person for Holly to have targeted this week for her game? People said Christy was the right move, not Nick. In fact, Tommy is the second best move, and then Nick was the third best move. I tend to agree. I think that they're right. I think Christy and Tommy are bigger threats to Holly's game than Nick is at this point, especially if she makes some kind of deal with Nick.
At this point, going into the week, I have to say that I feel like they're all sort of interchangeable in terms of Nick and Christy and Tommy. Because
I feel like Nick is more pliable than the others.
I maybe even before. Maybe you're right.
Yeah. Who is the best person for Nick to have targeted this week for his game? He also had a nomination. People said Jackson was his best shot, and I tend to agree with that one as well. I think neither of the people in power made the complete correct decision for their games, though they did say Christy was the second best person to target for Nick, and then the others were not really in contention. I asked about Sis's jury vote. I wanted you to rank the players in order of who you think they are most likely to for Sis to vote for to who is least likely for Sis to vote for. Tommy at the top, but only barely, which I disagree with. People saying that Christy is right behind Tommy. I think Tommy is number one with a bullet based on Sis's exit interviews, based on her relationship with Tommy all season long. It was always Tommy. And she hated Christy for a good couple of weeks before she finally came back around on her. I definitely feel like Sis is a vote in Tommy's favor if they are in the jury together. It's the other votes that I think might be swayed in Christy's favor. And that's my opinion on this one, Melissa.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that for sure. I could also see a situation where Sis is like, Christy didn't vote me out, and like uses that as like, oh, okay, well then I'm going to vote for Christy. Like Christy, whatever. In her
interview, I'm pretty sure she was asked directly, like, do you blame Tommy for voting out? She said, absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, yes,
I could be misremembering, but
now maybe, but I do see a situation where, the more they think about it, or like, I could have still been in the house. But Christy's the only one who didn't betray me. I don't know. I could just see it.
I can also see her like wanting I take your point that she's always liked Sis. I'm talking about always liked Tommy better and has hated Christy or disliked her for a portion of the season. But when you get to the end and you have a chance to vote, I think that it's maybe kind of appealing for Sis to want to vote for Christy, in that she's the one who, campaigned and got Sis out, and you kind of want to give that person your vote. Like
Does that sound like Sis though?
I feel like she could be influenced by people in the jury. I take your point that
we don't
on
know
her
what
own
people do, because on her own, like, okay, that's very different than what people would influence her to do. And I feel like she'd do whatever people influence her to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I think that she definitely is influenced a lot by Jack. Oh. I also personally feel like Jack is going to remain pro Tommy. That's my view on that one as well. Yeah, Jack was not the biggest Christy fan.
Right. Well, and this is a universe where Tommy and Christy end up in the final two, which I don't think is very likely right now. Mm-hmm. I think that one of them being there is certainly likely, but not both of them. So hopefully we won't even have to see that, because I if it's Tommy and Christy at the end, I don't want Christy to lose.
Yeah. So then they feel Nick is the next most likely, which, yeah, I can see that. Then Holly. Okay.
Maybe.
Cliff. It's really hard to see her voting for anybody other than Tommy or Christy.
Yeah, I agree.
Jess, Nicole, and then Jackson last, which it's probably fair.
Probably fair. She holds a grudge.
I wanted to know who you voted for to be America's prankster. 48% said Nicole.
Yep.
33% said Cliff, 10% said Nick. This pretty closely resembled my poll on Twitter, so not super surprising. I asked how you feel about the America's Prankster twist. 0 being you hate it, 100 being you love it. It got a 31. Negative. People do not like America's Prankster. I'm not sure any twist this season has broken like 50%.
It's been terrible, and I guess we have to be thankful that it's not as powerful as the hacker, where the hacker could, they could make the nomination before HOH, and they could pick a veto player, and then they could cancel a vote. Like at least it stopped at pick one nominee, and that's it. So whatever.
Yeah. I asked, do you think there will be a jury member returning to the game, whether via a battle back or buyback or vote back or whatever? And the vast majority of the audience, 93%, said no. They do not think a jury member will be returning to the game. Only 7% said yes. So
that is correct.
I hope as well. I asked if you think there'll be a double eviction this season. Brent seems to be on record saying he does not think they're going to do a double eviction. He has about 30% of the audience behind him on that one. About 30% of the audience says, no, there will not be a double eviction this season. But 70% say, yes, they do think there will be a double eviction.
Yep. Like I said, there is a way for them to do a double eviction and for this not to be a reset, in that they just have a normal eviction this Thursday. And then, like, remember in every season since I guess season 10, they have always gone from 5 to 3 in basically 2 days. They always have that special taped, non-live eviction on Tuesday. I think, and then it airs on Wednesday, and then they'd have another eviction on Thursday. If they don't do that this year and just go from 5 to 4 and 4 to 3 in normal weeks, like in years past, then I do feel like they can do a double eviction if they want to do one. But I just think that they're not going to have one this year.
Yeah. All right. And then finally, who do you want to be evicted this week? It's actually really neck and neck here. 55% say Christy they would like to see evicted this week. 45% say Nick is the person they would like to see leave this week. So still the slight majority of the audience would prefer Christy to go.
Yeah, I don't know what those people are thinking. I guess they're like thinking about the last, pre-game relationship in the house, and I take their point on that.
Yeah.
But like, Nick is such a horrible guy most of the time that I really don't want to, like, if he stays, then I feel like there's a good chance he could win the game. Like, he'll take Christie's spot in terms of being like third most likely to win, and I don't want to see that. So
I'm at the point where I'm hoping Tommy goes next week so that we can deal with these pre-existing relationships and Christy can stay in the game and be whatever figure she is going to be for the rest of the game. I still don't really, the major factor that keeps me from like really pulling for Christy is the pre-existing relationship with Tommy. We talked about this a little bit on a Twitch stream, that having a pre-existing relationship with somebody else on the cast has historically been incredibly significant when it comes to your overall placement in the house. Basically, any time there have been pre-existing relationships in the house, one of those people has at least made the final two, almost every single time. The only time that wasn't the case was, I believe, Big Brother 5 with the initial twin twist. But even then, you had Cowboy and Nokomis, who didn't know each other but were related. And then any other time, one of the people who either won or made it to final two was a pre-existing relationship. And then even in Celebrity Big Brother, when you had Tamar and Candy, who didn't like each other, had beef, but they still knew each other, they were able to work that to their advantage, and one of them won the game. Like, it is so seriously significant having that. It's a major advantage. Anybody that wants to present those statistics, I'd love to see them, because it's really a big deal, and it's really unfortunate, because I would love to see Christy without Tommy in the game. And I think that would be a lot more fun, and I'd be a lot more comfortable rooting for her. But at the same time, when I'm looking at this cast and everybody left, there's not anybody that's really clean. when we're looking at like Christy knows Tommy, Tommy knows Christy, Holly knew Kat, Cliff was evicted, Nicole hasn't really done much yet, Jess, Jackson, and Nick is about to go home, right? So it's like
Jackson and Holly kind of knew each other. Like,
yeah,
He followed her on Instagram. That's what he said.
Yeah, but also like she knew that he had followed her. Like I feel like there was more than just
it's
a
something.
follow. I feel like there
weird.
was something in there that they're not quite saying. I think maybe they chatted on Instagram. I don't know, but there is some connection.
He like stayed at her house, or she stayed at his house at one point. I don't know.
There's some pre-game connection.
Yeah, but I would say that's not as significant as some of the others, but still, something to see. So that's just my view on that. Anything else that you guys want to bring up here before we wrap this up?
No, I'm pretty psyched about the game. Like I said, just really psyched about what's going to happen. I feel like again, Cliff and Nicole have a free shot to win this week, and if they don't take it, fine. If they do take it, I still feel like they'll be fine. After they try to go after Tommy and Christy, presumably, Jackson and Holly have really made a turnaround to me in terms of being rootable in the game. Holly also helps his rootability. I feel like I really like Holly, as I said before. I really like her vibe, and I'm just like to see how this whole season turns out. And I don't feel like it's necessarily the competitions also. I still feel like that there's so much gameplay happening between the lines in terms of social relationships and what people can get other people to do and what they can't get them to do, and trying to talk to them about what they believe their best move is. I'm psyched to have this much great stuff happening at the end.
Yeah, I feel like I was really down on the beginning half of the season, and I feel like we've come to a really interesting, fun end game where we don't know what's going to happen, and there's a lot of movement, and it's been really cool. So I have no idea what's going to happen, and at this point, for the most part, I'm happy with everybody who's been playing, who is still left in the game besides Jess right now. But if Jess makes the move, takes out Jackson, I got to give her some props. Maybe she is just purposefully sitting back and then just bursting out and evicting the strong players. Who knows? But, I'm just saying. But I have been very impressed with everyone there. There's really no one, now that Sis is gone, there's really no one who I would be like, absolutely no, this is ruined. The game is ruined if they win. It's awful. There are some people who I'd prefer not to win, but there's nobody that I would be like, I've lost all faith if they win. So.
Yes. And to clarify, I did forget that the Big Brother 9. I can't remember there was a dating couple.
Oh.
Big Brother 9 is not my
it's not my cup of tea.
I forget if the pair in Big Brother 9 made it far enough to qualify. That might be one of the other exceptions, but apart from that, I think everything else works. And I'm not saying that every pre-existing relationship has made the final two. It was Ryan, and he did make final two. Okay, that's what I thought. So that does also still count. And then.
Thanks. You just proved Taran's point, guys.
Well, I didn't want to skip over. And I'm not saying that every pre-existing relationship has made it. Obviously, there were plenty in Big Brother 8 and Big Brother 6 and so forth that did not make the final two. But that's just because when there's more than 3 pre-existing relationships, not all of them can make the final two, but one of them did. So that is the situation there. I would love to see the stats on that. There have been some great people posting some fun statistical analyses.
While you're looking for that comment from CW, so glad, Brent, that you are giving Christy her props. On other podcasts, not so much, and I kind of gotten tired of that. So you're welcome. I'm here for you all. A
user called V Dixon on Reddit posted a little like article plus statistical analysis of the diversity in Big Brother, and actually mentioned that we had talked about it earlier in the season and did a bit of a study on that. Very interesting stuff. I recommend people check that out. All right. Other than that, I think we're good. So thank you for joining us this week. Make sure you tune in to American Ninja Warrior. The Vegas finals started tonight. It's very fun. It's going to be a big one. You can start right now. You don't need to know
Figure it
anything
out.
else.
Yes.
It's a tournament style thing now. They're gonna try to beat all 4 stages.
And they have to. That's what I love about the finals in Ninja Warrior is that they have to hit a buzzer. If they don't hit the buzzer, they're out. That's how it works. I'm so psyched about that. Also, make sure to join us on Wednesday night. My friend Kim Mattina from Sequester Season 2 is going to be joining us, and I have been campaigning for her to be on the show for a while. So obviously, I am going to be with her on Wednesday night, and you guys will have a great time. She is a big fan of the show, watches the feeds, and knows what she's talking about. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, and so if you do watch American Ninja Warrior, or even if you don't want to watch the actual episode, you can tune in to myself and Lita talking about the show on the American Ninja Warrior RHAP podcast. That it's a fun one, so check it out. And I will be back, of course, tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happened today on the Big Brother 21 live feeds. And then, as Brent said, Wednesday night will be live, and Thursday as well, of course, as always. So that, I believe, is what we got for you. You can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. You can find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. Brent is at One Lucky Gay. Melissa is at It's Melissa. Three of those A's. 3 of them. Sometimes people put 2. And that's not enough.
It's wrong.
Sometimes people put 4. And that's too many.
Apparently, the description of our YouTube video has me listed as 2 A's.
I know, that's what I saw. I was
That's
like,
wrong
oh
for
boy,
everybody.
somebody not listening.
Someone's getting fired.
Listen to our podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. For Brent and Melissa, I am Taran Armstrong. # Macbeth. We'll see you next time.